Eleanor Harper, 91, was on the verge of upending the world of a vicious outlaw band in the tranquil Montana mountains. The infamous Steel Vultures believed they were dealing with an elderly, defenseless woman when they attempted to evict her off her century-old family property. They were unaware that her grandson has over 200 successful combat missions under his belt as an elite Navy SEAL leader. What started out as straightforward intimidation would reveal one of the biggest criminal organizations in the state, sparking an epic battle that would permanently alter a little town. Tell us where you're tuning in from before we resume. Make sure to subscribe if this tale resonates with you, as I have something really special in store for you tomorrow. As Eleanor stepped onto her front porch, the Harper farm's old fence posts were adorned with lovely patterns created by the early frost. As she raised her coffee cup to her lips, her hands, despite the marks of decades of hard work, stayed steady. As she looked over the area her family had farmed for 3 generations, the steam Eleanor in the clear mountain air. Doors remained unlocked at night. Whispering Pines had always been a sleepy community where everyone knew one another, and the Harvest Festival was generally the source of the most excitement. But in the last few months, something had changed. There was an undercurrent of tension that Eleanor was all too familiar with, and new faces had come into town. She noticed the gravel road when she heard the rumble of engines. 3 black SUVs drove up, their immaculate finishes odd against her farm's rural setting. As the cars stopped, Eleanor's face remained the same as she carefully placed her coffee cup on the porch railing. Victor Stone emerged from the front car, noticeable as an outsider due to his pricey suit and shiny shoes. To Eleanor's seasoned eye, the nonchalant stances of the 2 guys flanking him revealed military expertise. She had witnessed enough troops in her lifetime to be familiar with their demeanor. Victor's voice carried a false warmth as he shouted out, "Mrs. Harper. A lovely morning for discussing your property." Eleanor's tone didn't waver. "I think I made my stance plain last week, Mr. Stone. There is no sale of this farm." As he got closer to the porch steps, Victor's smile stopped short of his eyes. "Mrs. Harper, the value of real estate in this neighborhood is increasing. We are more than generous in our offer. You have to acknowledge that running a farm this big must be difficult for someone your age. Mr. Stone, I've encountered more difficulties than real estate developers." Eleanor didn't flinch as her blue eyes met his. "This farm was created from nothing by my husband and me. This is where our daughter grew up. These floors taught my grandson how to walk. There are some things that are more valuable than cash." Victor's honed charm briefly faltered when a shadow moved across his face. "I don't think you realize what we're giving you, Mrs. Harper. The times are evolving. Things are shifting in Whispering Pines. The last thing you want is to fall behind." His words hung in the morning air like a threat. Eleanor's sharp eyes were not amused by his men's casual perusal of the farm buildings as they spread out behind him. "I completely understand," Eleanor said, her tone lowering. "I am aware that making a real estate deal doesn't require 3 carloads of muscle from respectable businessmen. I realize this town doesn't need your kind of transformation." Victor took a step on the bottom porch step and moved closer. "Mrs. Harper, your stubborn pride can be hazardous. On farms, accidents frequently occur, particularly to older women who live alone." Eleanor did not retreat. Instead, she gave Victor a small smile, which caused him to hesitate. "Mr. Stone, do you know what else I understand? I know you and your steel horsemen believe you can force an elderly woman from her property, but you've made 2 grave errors. Is that correct?" There was a hint of threat in Victor's laughter. "What errors might those be?" "You thought I was alone," Eleanor said gently at first. She gestured toward the front window, where a hunting rifle was clearly set in its stand, its scope glinting in the morning sun. "Despite my advanced age, I am far from helpless." Victor's soldiers stiffened, their hands automatically reaching for their concealed guns. "What about the second error?" Victor's voice hardened as he questioned. "You thought I wouldn't know who you truly are. Decades of experience were evident in Eleanor's voice. I've seen people like you before. Men who believe they can take anything they desire and who believe that fear is the source of strength. In the battle, my late husband faced up against men just like you. Now, my grandson battles them. The mention of her grandson caused Victor's eyes to light up. Navy SEAL, your grandson. He laughed, but his laughter was unsure. Is he not present now? I suppose it was deployed far away. Incapable of assisting his impoverished granny. Eleanor took her cell phone out of her pocket. Mr. Stone, that's where you're mistaken once more. In fact, Logan is anticipating my call. Approximately now. There was a noticeable change in atmosphere. Victor's soldiers looked at each other, their cocky stances faltering a bit. Mrs. Harper, this is your last warning. Victor lowered his voice to a snarl. Accept our offer. One way or another, things are going to change around here. Avoid making things difficult for us. Eleanor's fingers lingered on the keypad of her phone. No, Mr. Stone. This is the last warning you will receive. Now, while you can, go off my land. Because everything changes if I make this call. And not in the manner you intend. The morning air crackled with tension for a long time. Victor then took a step back and pushed his suit Loganette into a more relaxed position. We will communicate, Mrs. Harper. Consider your future and your position carefully. Eleanor observed until the SUV's dust track vanished down the road as they withdrew. It was then that her hands started to tremble a little. She glanced down at her phone, the number she had committed to memory but had never had to use. So far. Before a recognizable voice picked up, the phone rang again. Gran. Is everything all right? Eleanor steadied herself with a long breath. Logan, do you recall telling me to call you if I ever needed assistance? If I ever felt in danger? The line went silent for a time. Logan's voice had taken on the abrasive edge of a warrior when he spoke again. What took place? Just now, the Steel Vultures arrived. Victor Stone, their leader, stated unequivocally that they will not accept rejection. A hawk circled overhead, its call piercing the morning silence as Eleanor gazed. Logan, I believe it's time you returned home. I believe it's time to demonstrate to them the consequences of threatening the wrong family. Logan Harper put his phone down, and the briefing room of Naval Special Warfare Command fell silent. In the course of one talk, his look had changed from one of casual interest to one of focused intent. His longtime teammate David Walker recognized that look. Logan wore the identical one prior to each high-stakes procedure. Sir. Taking note of the shift in his superior officer's attitude, Commander Phillips interrupted his tactical briefing. I require an urgent leave of absence. With instant effect. The quiet authority that has guided soldiers through numerous combat missions was evident in Logan's voice. Family circumstances. In the SEAL teams, the word family was important. No more justification was required. Phillips gave a sharp nod once. Okay, Walker, accompany him. We need you back for the Carter operation in 72 hours. David fell into stride with Logan outside the briefing room. Your grandma. Vultures of Steel. Logan walked deliberately in the direction of their workplace. She is being pressured to sell the farm. Threatened this morning. David's face grew serious. They were viewed as mere thugs and small-time dealers by the motorcycle gang that has been migrating up from Colorado. It's time to find out. Logan quickly tapped the keys on his laptop to open it. Give the Chronicle's Maria Santos a call. She has been keeping tabs on local gang activity. Check out what she is aware of. As David placed the call, Logan viewed satellite photos of Whispering Pines, his gaze sweeping over the landscape he had grown up with. The town was different. On the periphery are new structures. What was formerly open ranch property is being pushed into development. Situated just outside the town limits was the Steel Vultures facility. An enormous building complex that is too modern and well-kept for a basic motorcycle club. David covered the mouthpiece of the phone and said, "Maria has intelligence, claims that property along the county line has been acquired by the Steel Vultures. Using force on residents while maintaining a low level of legality to avoid negative publicity." Logan's mouth clenched. "Federal land is adjacent to my grandmother's farm. Elevated terrain with unobstructed views of 3 main freeways. Ideal location for traffic monitoring." There was sad understanding in David's words. "Or organizing shipments. Real estate development isn't the topic here." Logan took a closer look at the satellite photos. "They are establishing routes for distribution. They would have a safe route directly to Canada thanks to the farm." On Logan's desk, the phone rang. "Only sensitive operations are conducted over a secure line." David responded, his face becoming more solemn by the second. "At the DEA, that was my contact. They have been keeping an eye on Steel Vultures for months. Although there isn't enough evidence to indict them, they are accused of providing protection for a significant cartel." Logan shut down his laptop with a firm sense of closure. "We will then need to provide them with something substantial." It took 16 hours to go to Montana. They only stopped for fuel, changing drivers every 4. David made calls throughout that period to have a better understanding of their situation. Victor Stone had transformed the Steel Vultures from a simple motorcycle gang into something more advanced. While creating a respectable commercial front, purchasing real estate, and making political contacts, they had preserved their reputation as outlaw bikers. They passed the "Welcome to Whispering Pines" sign just before nightfall. At first appearance, the town appeared to be unchanged. The same ramshackle shops. The same mountain range. However, Logan's keen eye saw the minute variations. Street corners now have brand new surveillance cameras. Strange faces peering through doorways. Local companies were closing sooner than he recalled. The major street corner was still anchored by Bill Anderson's diner. Logan could see the typical evening crowd through the windows. Farmers. Store owners. The everyday people who had been a part of town life for many years. However, their attitudes were tense. Lower voices were used during the conversation. "First, your grandmother's house." As they got closer to the town limits, David inquired. Logan gave a headshake. "Linda Cooper of the sheriff's office has to be aware of our presence. We do this correctly. By the book. For the time being." For 50 years, the sheriff's department had been housed in the same red brick building. As they stepped inside, Linda Cooper stood. She seemed both relieved and worried. "Harper, Logan. It's about time you arrived." "Linda, how awful is it?" The wrinkled face of the sheriff tensed. "Even worse than what your grandmother is revealing. The county has been steadily being overrun by Steel Vultures. Little things initially. Protection funds from companies. Managing the drug trade in the area. But they're becoming more audacious. In the past month, 2 ranch fires have occurred. No evidence, of course." "What about the county commission?" Logan inquired. Even though he knew the answer. "In their pocket is Thomas Bennett." Linda was clearly disgusted. "Every attempt at a serious probe is blocked by him. Accusations that we are persecuting respectable businesspeople." David looked at the wall-mounted incident map. "You've identified the pattern. They're proceeding methodically. Assuming command of important transportation routes." Linda gave a nod. "Began immediately following Victor Stone's purchase of the former Thompson Ranch. Since then, it has been growing. The final component they require to take over the entire northern route is your grandmother's land. Then they don't understand." Logan's voice was utterly assured. "However, we must be astute about this. Clearly, somewhere up the line, they have protection. Logan. They turned to go, but he was stopped by Linda's voice. They're not your typical troublemakers. Professionals make up Stone's workforce. Some were trained in the military. Here, they're constructing something significant. I am aware. Logan steadily looked into her eyes. We're going to destroy it because of this. Individually. By the time they arrived at the Harper property, the sun had already set. In the kitchen window, lights were burning. And as they got closer, the porch lights turned on. As elegant and straight-backed as ever, Eleanor Harper emerged. She said plainly, "You made good time." As though Logan had just been gone for a weekend rather than 3 years. Logan gave her a cautious hug, seeing that she was smaller than he had remembered. Not any less powerful, though. Brought some assistance. This is my teammate David Walker. With eyes that had seen too much trouble recently, Eleanor gave David a nod before turning to face her grandson. They'll be observing. The people of Stone. These days, they always are. Excellent. Logan had a small but menacing smirk. Let them observe. Make it clear to them who they are interacting with. Unseen onlookers did indeed see the reunion from the darkness beyond the lights on the property. The news of Logan Harper's arrival was met with well-controlled rage by Victor Stone in the Steel Vultures camp. In the end, the elderly woman referred to her hero grandchild. He used needless energy to crush out his cigarette. All right. We'll show them both what happens when you get in our way if that's how she wants to play it. However, Stone was too busy formulating his answer to notice the subtle changes that were already taking place in Whispering Pines. Within the village, rumors of Logan Harper's homecoming began to circulate. Long, silent souls started to move. People who had lived too long in terror started to believe that perhaps, just possibly, someone had finally arrived who could fight the darkness that had been spreading throughout their homes and businesses around the county. It took us a long time to prepare and tell this narrative. Please subscribe to our channel if you find it entertaining. It is really important to us. Let's return to the narrative. Logan Harper was walking Main Street when dawn turned the mountains gold, pointing out things that the untrained eye might miss. Businesses that suddenly had money for improvements, cars with out-of-state license plates parked in key spots, new cameras installed on buildings, and freshly painted brick. The ideal observation post was the cafe owned by Bill Anderson. As Logan walked in, the morning throng was thin and the conversations were fading. With a relieved expression on his wrinkled face, Bill himself brought coffee. Didn't think you'd return. As Bill slipped into the booth, he spoke softly. Logan, things are different now. Not in a good way. Tell me. Bill looked around and said something. Began small, with Stone's team providing financial safety. Those who declined experienced graffiti, accidents, and break-ins. Next, offers to purchase, which are always more than market value. How many were sold? Too many. The resignation in Bill's voice was evident. Half of the establishments on 3rd Street are owned by the Thompsons and the Reeves. Some were happy to accept the cash. Others saw no other option. The entrance of the diner chimed. Maria Santos came in, just as Logan remembered her appearance. No detail is missed by keen eyes, and a notebook is always available. Uninvited, she slipped into the booth. Without introducing herself, she said, "Your timing is perfect. You must see what I have for you." She covered the table with pictures. Financial information, surveillance photos of the Steel Vultures facility, and recordings of late-night gatherings. Maria clarified that they are using respectable companies to launder money. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Take a look at these shipment manifests, the volumes seem excessive for the products these companies say they are selling. Logan looked over the papers. You've been quite busy. And cautious. It had to be. The last reporter to pose inquiries vanished. He formally accepted a position in Seattle. Informally. She did not finish the statement. David Walker came in and sat down at the counter to keep an eye on the street. Although he was in a calm attitude, Logan could tell he was prepared for battle. Maria went on, Commissioner Bennett is involved. He has been obstructing investigations by expediting permissions. Half of the county officials are in the pockets of the Steel Vultures. A money trail. Maria gave a headshake. Shell corporations and offshore accounts. Stone is skilled at concealing things. However, have a look at these real estate purchases. They're building a hallway. Logan recognized the pattern. There was more to his grandmother's farm than just priceless land. It was the last link in a well-planned network. The door to the diner opened once more. Stone's second-in-command, Steve Parker, came in with 2 other Steel Vultures. Customers were noticeably nervous in the morning. Parker walked over to their booth with a warm smile that stopped short of his eyes. Logan Harper. I heard you had returned to the city. Reunion with family? That kind of thing. Logan's posture moved slightly, placing him between Parker and Maria's paperwork, but his voice remained neutral. Nice. Taking care of Granny is admirable. On the table, Parker leaned. However, I hope you don't intend to stay for a long time. The town has transformed. It might not be as friendly as you recall. With a coffee pot in hand, Bill Anderson came over. Is everything okay here? Just saying hello to a longtime neighbor. Parker stood up. Harper, your granny is obstinate. People who are stubborn often end up in accidents. Logan's voice didn't waver. Parker, is that a threat? Just a quick note. It would be a shame if the lovely farm suffered any harm. It's lonely out there. David Walker purposefully turned away from the counter at that precise time, highlighting the military-grade sidearm that was visible beneath his logonet. Parker's grin grew strained. Simply being a good neighbor. Consider what I stated. When they were gone, Maria hastily collected her papers. Now they'll be observing. More than previously. Excellent. Logan's face showed grim satisfaction. Let them observe. We will also be watching in the interim. Eleanor Harper had another guest across town. With his usual concern and political charm, Thomas Bennett himself pulled up in his county commissioner's vehicle. Be reasonable, Mrs. Harper, he said from her porch. These developers create jobs and advance society. This type of investment is necessary for the town. Summer might have been frozen by Eleanor's speech. Is that now referred to as extortion? Investing? Nobody desires trouble. Bennett's voice was foreboding. However, problem seems to find those who don't collaborate with advancement. Interesting word choice, Eleanor said with a small smile. Prior to joining the SEALs, my grandson taught history. Taught me about the workings of corruption. How it spreads till it is referred to as progress by good people. Bennett's facade gave way a little. Your grandchild needs to know where he fits in. This goes beyond the homestead of one obstinate old lady. Yes, I believe he fully comprehends. Eleanor had steel eyes. I want to know if you comprehend yours. Because everyone will know exactly where they stood and whose side they supported after this is all over. Eleanor contacted Logan after Bennett had departed. They are becoming anxious. Bennett himself arrived to put me under pressure. We're discovering fascinating things, Logan said. Maintain the security system's weapons. Tonight, David is installing more cameras. Eleanor warned that they were plotting something. I sense it. I am aware, but we are as well. Victor Stone got reports from his multiple sources at the Steel Vultures complex. Logan Harper had been collecting intelligence all morning. There was the reporter. Worse, people in the town were starting to notice. Steve Parker cautioned that Harper had training. Both him and his friend. We can't threaten this local police officer. Stone struck his desk with his fist. Even if he is freaking Superman, I don't care. What we are building here is not under danger. Nobody. On his computer, he displayed satellite photos of the Harper farm. We'll show them what actual battle looks like if they want to pretend to be warriors. Make the phone calls. It's time to get some expert assistance. People saw changes around town. First, small ones. David Walker and Logan Harper converse with business owners in private. Maria Santos candidly snapping pictures during Steel Vultures events. Most importantly, the terror that had engulfed Whispering Pines started to change. Because someone was opposing the Steel Vultures for the first time in months. There was a person collecting evidence, asking questions, and not being afraid of Victor Stone's threats. The storm was approaching. It was felt by all. However, when it broke this time, the Steel Vultures might encounter greater opposition than they had anticipated. For it was not only to defend his grandmother's farm that Logan Harper had returned home. His goal was to retake his village. In Whispering Pines, black SUVs with tinted windows started to show up. Their drivers were too professional to be mere thugs, and they moved with military precision. David Walker was the first to notice them, identifying the warning indications of private military contractors thanks to his battle experience. As Logan watched two of them case Main Street, he revealed that he was an ex-military man. Most likely Blackwater or something like it. Stone's is gaining a lot of muscle. Logan watched from Bill Anderson's cafe as they moved. I have counted 4 teams. Around town, they are erecting monitoring posts. Maria Santos whispered as she stepped into their booth. Chatter about cargoes passing over the old logging roads was picked up by the police scanner. Patrols have been rerouted away from such areas by Deputy Thompson. Does Thompson belong to their group? Logan's face grew serious. Sheriff Cooper has been placed in isolation along with 3 other deputies, and her most trusted cops have been moved to desk duty. Regular patrons of the diner were tipping more than they usually did. Bill Anderson's readiness to allow Logan to utilize the location as an observation station was met with silence. Resistance was being expressed in small ways all across the town. Despite mounting pressure, Jenny Thompson had refused to sell her store. Anyone who had been vandalized by the Steel Vultures could now get free repairs from Mike Foster's garage. Above the door of the diner, the bell chimed. 2 of Victor Stone's new professionals accompanied him as he entered. The audience fell silent in the morning. Uninvited, Stone slipped into Logan's booth, his pricey suit looking out of place in the rustic cafe. Let's chat, Harper. Nothing to discuss. Logan's posture changed slightly, as if he were prepared for anything, but his voice remained neutral. There is, in fact. Stone grinned icily. You're getting in the way of business, you see. Reputable company. Causing anxiety in my investors. Real? Logan's eyebrow went up. For this reason, you require military contractors to safeguard your investment. Stone's exterior crumbled a little. You don't know what you're up against. This surpasses the obstinate pride of your granny. Greater than the entire backwater town. Here's where you're mistaken. Logan slowly looked him in the eye. This is hardly a backward town. All that has been needed is someone to confront bullies like you. Harper, be careful. Stone's voice fell perilously. Heroes are prone to suffering injuries. Their families as well. David Walker picked that time to come up, casually but deliberately. Stone's experts stiffened, their hands shifting under their coats. Is everything well, Logan? Sheriff Linda Cooper came into the diner before Stone could answer. Her voice stayed professional, but her face tightened at the sight of Stone. Stone, mister. I just wanted to see the dude. We need to talk about certain inconsistencies in your building permits. Stone stood with ease. Sheriff, Another time. I had just departed. He looked back to Logan. Consider what I stated. Family should come first. Linda joined their booth after they departed. They have 4 of my deputies working for them. I received proof this morning. Regular payments through shell firms are documented in bank records. Are you able to take them into custody? Maria inquired. Linda gave a headshake. Not without disclosing our research. Besides, they would be freed in a matter of hours under Commissioner Bennett. We must give them the impression that they are winning, Logan stated. Allow them to gain self-assurance. Careless. David gave the window a nod. Your grandmother's farm is being monitored by them. Teams of professionals switch shifts. Excellent. Logan grinned glumly. They won't realize what we're actually doing while they're observing us. Eleanor had another type of guest at the Harper property. Jenny Thompson brought freshly made baked pastries. A highly advanced security system was left behind when Mike Foster arrived to inspect her tractor. Stone received news from local leaders and dinner from Bill Anderson's wife. This silent show of solidarity caught the attention of the Steel Vultures. Every guest was photographed and every contact was recorded by Stone's mercenaries. However, they failed to see the delicate interactions, the little parcels that were sent, and the silent discussions that were creating a network of resistance. After hours, Linda Cooper met with Logan and David in secret in the sheriff's office. I received an intriguing message from the state police. Through shell corporations that might be linked to offshore accounts, Steel Vultures has been purchasing real estate along 3 important trucking routes. David verified drug corridors. They are establishing a network of distribution. They would have a direct route to Canada and surveillance positions overlooking all major approaches on your grandmother's farm, Logan continued. Professionally, they are constructing something large. Linda laid out a map on her desk. Bennett has been working to get zoning modifications passed so they can expand. But take a look at this. Each of the properties they have purchased has access to former logging routes, fire trails, or mining roads. Maria Santos came with files through the rear door. Discovered documentation of comparable operations in Wyoming and Colorado. The same motif. They settle down, purchase valuable properties, and influence local authorities. The amount of drug trade in the area triples in 6 months. But here's where they went wrong, Logan said. They believed they could scare an elderly woman into leaving her property. Rather, they have provided us with the opportunity to destroy their entire business. They were interrupted by the crackle of static from Linda's radio. The Harper farm is being approached by several cars. Subjects with guns watched. Logan had already started to move. They're playing earlier than anticipated. Linda cautioned. Stone's experts won't think twice about using deadly force. Neither will we, Logan said icily. Did they wish to portray soldiers? Let's demonstrate to them what true troops are capable of. David kept an eye on radio traffic as they headed approaching the farm. The mercenaries of the Steel Vultures were occupying strategic locations throughout the property as they mobilized in large numbers. They were unaware, however, that Logan had been planning for this very situation for the past 3 days. No longer was the Harper property merely a tranquil household. They were Steel Vultures, and they were going to set a trap. By the time the Steel Horsemen arrived, night had fallen on the Harper property. The sloping landscape provided cover for 6 cars that came with their lights out. With expert accuracy, their mercenaries moved into position and surrounded the property with a perimeter. From their vantage point, it appeared to be a simple intimidation campaign. They were mistaken. Eleanor Harper was sitting quietly at the kitchen table in the farmhouse, drinking tea. As intended, the lights were on and there was a distinct silhouette in the window. She could hear Logan's soft voice directing their answer through her headset. Gran, let them believe they have the upper hand, like we discussed. The mercenaries' radio conversations abruptly became static-filled, which was the first indication that something was amiss. Over the course of 2 days, David Walker had put up interference equipment throughout the property, concealed in vintage agricultural equipment. According to one of the professionals, communications were disrupted, and hand signals were used instead. They continued to approach, but much more cautiously. The town was the source of the second surprise. The trucks started coming in. Bill Anderson's delivery van, Mike Foster's tow truck, and 6 other local cars driven by people who had finally had enough of living in constant danger. They blocked the Steel Vultures' escape route by parking along the access road. "What on earth is this?" From the command van, Steve Parker watched via binoculars and demanded. The orderly tactical arrangement of the mercenaries was abruptly disrupted, forcing them to divide their focus. Their radio frequencies were interrupted, but Logan's voice could be clearly heard. "It's private property. You can pull out in 10 seconds. Victor Stone reached for the radio, his voice crackling with anger. "You're making a huge error, Harper. Either clear these cars, or we'll do it ourselves." Logan simply answered, "Last warning. Go now." On the main gate of the farm, 2 mercenaries moved forward. Light sprung to life the instant they touched it. The night became day thanks to strong floodlights installed on the barn and sheds. The experts discovered that they were lighted, their positions revealed. "Do you have targets, sniper teams?" Stone made a demand. He was met with silence. The scopes of his sniper teams, who were stationed in the hills above the farm, had been inexplicably painted over. The efforts of local hunters who were familiar with the property's routes and approaches. The commotion was broken by the voice of Sheriff Linda Cooper. "The police are here. People with guns are threatening bystanders, according to accounts I'm getting." Every unit reacts. Stone was too late to see the trap. In front of onlookers, with police on the way, his men would engage if they did so now. His meticulously preserved facade of respectable business would come crashing down. With clenched teeth, he gave the command to pull back. Withdrawal in strategy. Right now. Locals used their phones to record the mercenaries' every action as they started to back off, their professional manner crumbling. Maria Santos was also present and took notes on everything. But there was still one more card for the Steel Vultures to play. 2 guys separated from the main army and hurried with Molotov cocktails toward the barn. They didn't arrive. David Walker stepped out of the darkness, his military experience showing in every step. The first man was disarmed by a single, accurate blow, and the second man was forced to confront Logan Harper, who appeared out of nowhere. It was a quick, controlled, and decisive battle. Without firing a shot, both assailants were taken down, zip-tied, and abandoned for the oncoming police. The officers discovered an odd situation when they got there. Simple planning and collective action hampered the tactical operation of armed mercenaries in retreat. Numerous witnesses have video footage of the entire attempt, and 2 would-be arsonists are in arrest. Fury growing, Stone watched from his command van as his preparations fell apart. He yelled into the radio, "Harper, this isn't over." "It is, in fact," Logan said. "We have probable cause to look into every car and person connected to tonight's attempt because of you." "Sheriff?" Linda Cooper's voice was content. "Logan, I already have the warrants." After reviewing the evidence of attempted assault and arson, Judge Harris was pleased to sign them. More was discovered than the Steel Vultures had anticipated when their cars were searched. Police discovered communications equipment, military-grade firearms, and, most dangerous of all, detailed maps showing the county's drug trafficking routes. Eleanor eventually put down her teacup in the farmhouse. That was fantastic, indeed. Even though he knew she had been completely safe, Logan went in to examine her. "Gran, are you all right?" "Naturally. I think we've just sparked a hornet's nest," but she did smile a little. That was the strategy. Logan observed the officers processing the scene via the window. Eventually, they were forced to reveal their hand. We now have evidence of their actual activities. David joined them, his face grave. Documentation connecting them to cartel activities in 3 states was discovered in their cars. Stone has a larger enterprise than we initially believed. Excellent. Logan spoke in a somber tone. They fall more forcefully the larger they are. Victor Stone was learning how severely the night's operation had gone wrong at the Steel Vultures facility. A secure line reserved for emergencies sounded on his phone. You told us that things were under control. The voice of the cartel spokesman was icy. Police are currently searching cars that may contain private information. This is not acceptable. With perspiration streaming down his brow, Stone assured them, I'll take care of it. You'd better. You have 24 hours to tidy up. We'll send someone to handle it our way after that. Stone's meticulously planned strategies came crashing down as he slammed down the phone. He had misjudged Logan Harper and the town's ability to fight back. However, he still had options, although risky ones. He told Steve Parker to call our pals in state government. Request that they end Cooper's probe. Get me all the information you can about Harper's military history, then. His teammates, his assignments, everything. Parker paused, Sir. Those documents are classified. Not to everybody. Stone grinned viciously. It's time to demonstrate to Harper what true combat looks like. However, Stone was too busy planning his counterattack to realize how the events of the previous night had altered the situation in Whispering Pines. The taller people were those who had lived in fear. People who had remained quiet were starting to speak up. The battle for the town's soul was only getting started. Additionally, the Steel Vultures were going to discover that the enemy with the most weapons isn't always the most dangerous. The community has made the decision to strike back at last. The first wave of Stone's counterattack came in the morning. Investigators from the Attorney General's office arrived in Whispering Pines on state police cruisers. They went to the sheriff's department first, where they gave Linda Cooper orders to turn over all of the evidence from the event the night before. The main investigator produced documents signed by high-ranking officials to say that this probe had been shifted to the state level. All of the materials must be turned over right away. Linda's answer was forceful yet courteous. The timing is intriguing, particularly since I have previously forwarded copies of all documents to the FBI's Helena field office. Eleanor had a formal visit from county health inspectors, environmental regulators, and tax assessors at the Harper farm. They all arrived at the same time and had unexpected, pressing reasons to check her land. According to one official going through documents, your agricultural permits appear to be outdated, and there are worries about watershed contamination. Until the review is completed, we could have to halt all farming activities. Hell itself might have frozen at Eleanor's voice. Is that correct? It's interesting that when Mr. Stone wanted to purchase the property last week, my permits were still fully current. From their unofficial headquarters, Bill Anderson's diner across town, Logan and David kept an eye on the situation. Maria Santos came with new information. She distributed documents across the table and said Stone has called in every political favor he has. However, he's accomplishing it by burning bridges. Take a look at these money transactions. He's spending a lot of money to maintain order. David looked over the documents. He's making blunders and becoming desperate. There's more, Maria said softly. This morning, my contact at the front desk noticed the signals when 2 cartel representatives, acting under business cover, checked into the Mountain View Hotel. Logan's face grew serious. Stone's supervisors are becoming anxious. Jenny Thompson entered the diner through the open door. Anger was hardly contained on her face. After 20 years of inspections, they had never discovered any health issues, therefore they recently demolished my store. How many other companies are there? Logan inquired. So far, 6. Everyone who assisted last night. Calmly, Bill Anderson placed coffee mugs in front of them. Although it appears their inspector got lost en route, they attempted that here as well. I won't be able to attend till the following week. Bill's eye gleamed, and Logan saw it. The community was figuring out how to defend itself. Another crisis confronted Linda Cooper at the sheriff's department. This was the time that her dishonest deputies decided to formally report about her, accusing her of misbehavior and power abuse. One of her few trusted deputies, Paul Turner, said, "It's a concerted effort to remove you. They are advocating for the county commission to hold an urgent hearing." "Allow them to push," Linda said. "Get me all the information you can about Deputy Thompson's bank records in the interim." According to Maria Santos, he has recently made some intriguing acquisitions. The pressure increased in the afternoon. Supporters of Harper Farm have tax liens on their properties. Urgent infractions were found by building inspectors, necessitating the quick closure of enterprises that were resistant. Despite Stone's political apparatus working non-stop, opposition was intensifying. Inspectors discovered that 30 customers' cars were obstructing entry to Mike Foster's garage, and their owners were nowhere to be seen. With the help of a steady stream of customers who dared authorities to arrest them, Jenny Thompson's store stayed open in spite of condemnation orders. Victor Stone met with cartel representatives at the Steel Vultures complex. They were clearly unhappy. The senior representative, a man who identified himself as Mr. Garcia, said icily, "This attention is unacceptable. Your procedure was meant to be undetectable." "I can take care of Harper," Stone urged. "Now we have leverage. Take a look." He opened a folder that contained names of team members, mission reports, information about Logan's SEAL operations, and classified military documents. "Our source was successful. Harper's group took part in a few contentious operations. The appropriate media outlets received one leak." Garcia interrupted him. "You're not understanding. The cartel does not want any kind of publicity. We'll fix it ourselves if you don't." Every phrase was recorded by David Walker's surveillance equipment as the conference came to a conclusion. From their concealed observation station close to the compound, he and Logan heard. "David pointed out that they will shortly act against us. Stone is out of control. He won't be trusted by the cartel for long." "Excellent." Logan looked at his timepiece. "Tomorrow, Maria's story regarding the dishonest deputies will be revealed. Linda has sufficient proof to compel an internal inquiry. They will attempt to halt the narrative. Sometimes you have to give the enemy the impression that they are winning." Eleanor was sitting on her porch back at the Harper property, watching the occasional police car go by. Now it was clear that they were watching. Subtlety is being replaced with intimidation. Her phone rang. The dishonest commissioner was Thomas Bennett. His voice was full of fake concern, "Mrs. Harper. Although the county board is quite concerned about these infractions on your land, there may be a speedy solution." "Oh, Mr. Bennett, hold your breath. Eleanor cut me off. You'd better start worrying about yourself. I am aware that officials that assist drug traffickers are seen negatively by the FBI." Bennett's facade broke. "You obstinate old lady, you have no idea what you're up against. Not one of you does." Eleanor really grinned a little. "You're going to find out, but I doubt you realize what you're up against." Tension seized Whispering Pines as night fell. Political pressure on the Steel Vultures had exposed both the extent and boundaries of their malfeasance. New opposition was generated by each act of intimidation. New vulnerabilities were revealed by each threat. A group of unmarked cars moved across the county line toward town in the darkness. The cartel had finished its wait. They were dispatching experts to solve the issue once and for all. However, Logan Harper had dealt with experts all of his professional life, so he wasn't waging this battle alone. The adversary was about to discover that sometimes the most deadly weapon isn't a pistol or a badge, but rather the truth itself, as the struggle for Whispering Pines entered a new phase. The headline of the Whispering Pines Chronicles was a shock. Uniform corruption. The deputies' covert payments were made public. The article by Maria Santos included witness testimony and bank data for every corrupt transaction and compromised inquiry. The tale was like wildfire, spreading across the town by dawn. The newspaper office door was kicked in as a result of Deputy Thompson's anger. It was empty, he discovered. Maria, working remotely from a secure location, had expected this response. However, the violence was a watershed. The legitimacy of the Steel Vultures was crumbling. Linda Cooper's pace at the sheriff's department was swift. Take a team, Paul. Take Morris and Thompson into custody. Now the evidence is strong. However, Thompson and 3 other deputies who were accused had vanished. At the Steel Vultures facility, their patrol cars were discovered abandoned. From their observation station, Logan and David kept an eye on the situation. David pointed out that they are bringing their compromised assets in for safety, consolidating, and keeping an eye on things through powerful optics. More than that, said Logan. Take a look at the newcomers. The facility was invaded by 3 vans that were not marked. With military accuracy, soldiers carrying equipment boxes emerged. These were professional killers, not local muscle. David confirmed that they were cartel cleaners. Garcia will no longer wait for Stone to resolve this. The grieving brought escalation to the town. When Jenny Thompson got to her store, she discovered that the windows were broken, but her patrons helped clean up and keep things running smoothly. Local veterans staged spontaneous security patrols out of Mike Foster's garage. The nerve center of opposition continued to be Bill Anderson's diner. Overnight, they hit 4 businesses, he said Logan. However, something has changed. People are no longer giving in. The police scanner sputtered. There have been reports of armed personnel inspecting companies that had provided support for the Harper farm. However, Stone's typical thugs weren't like this. They left behind subtle but obvious dangers as they moved with expert efficiency. Thomas Bennett and 2 state police officers paid Eleanor Harper a visit to start her mourning process. Bennett waved documents and declared, "We have a warrant to search the property. Environmental infractions. Move aside." Eleanor stood motionless in her doorway. Fascinating. I just got off the phone with Judge Harris, who signed the warrant. These papers were never seen by him. Bennett's expression contorted. Don't make this hard, Mrs. Harper. Oh, Eleanor said, it's already hard. For you. Because you failed to see that the FBI surveillance team was taking pictures of this entire illegal entry attempt while you were attempting to intimidate an elderly woman. Just like clockwork, an unmarked federal car appeared. When Bennett's police escorts realized they were actually federal agents, they promptly pulled away. It's not over, Bennett growled. With composure, Eleanor acknowledged that you were correct. The FBI is particularly interested in corrupt authorities who assist drug traffickers by obtaining fictitious warrants. The trained killers for the cartel started to work throughout town. When Maria Santos turned the key, her automobile exploded, but she wasn't inside. Just in time, Logan had issued his warning. A mystery gas leak occurred in Bill Anderson's kitchen, but he had already evacuated on David's recommendation. Every hit attempt was unsuccessful and was met with prepared responses and empty targets. The hunters were turning into the prey. Anger bubbled up at the Steel Vultures complex. How do they predict every action? Garcia made a demand. Stone didn't know how to respond. He was losing his organization. Already, 3 of his lieutenants had vanished with large sums of money. Others were quietly negotiating with the police. Find Harper, Garcia said. Locate him and put an end to this. Right now. Logan Harper, however, had come out of hiding. He passed Garcia's security as if they didn't exist and entered the lobby of the Mountain View Hotel. He took a seat across from the cartel official in the restaurant. "Very brave of you," Garcia said, gesturing for his soldiers to remain in place. Logan answered, simply conveying a message. "In the event that somebody in this town is harmed, all of our evidence, including documents, recordings, and pieces of evidence, is turned over to federal authorities. You're engaging in risky behavior. Not a game." Logan had a steely voice. "You're going to face more serious issues. Stone has been selling routes to your rivals and stealing from your shipments. We also have evidence of that." Garcia's hand gripped his water glass more tightly, but his face remained unchanged. "That is a grave charge. Examine your books. Verify the shipments you haven't received. Stone has been playing both sides and constructing his own empire with your money." Logan got up to go. Although Garcia's soldiers stiffened, their leader gestured them away. "Harper, you know I'm not lying if you're. Stone is becoming a liability. How many of your activities will he reveal when he collapses, is the question." Logan's confession had a poisonous effect on the cartel's hierarchy. Stone was unaware that his biggest threat now came from his own buddies. Stone's second-in-command, Steve Parker, was another guest Eleanor had at the Harper farm. However, this visit was different in some way. Looking over his shoulder, he whispered softly, "Mrs. Harper. You need to know a few things about Stone's true intentions and the true person responsible for everything." Parker strewn papers on her kitchen table inside the farmhouse, proof of something far larger than a small-town drug ring. It extended to the highest echelons of state governance. Parker clarified that Stone is merely an intermediary manager. The capital is where the true power is located. No one had anticipated the magnitude and ugliness of the truth. There was more to the Steel Vultures than just a gang. They served as puppets in a vast criminal business that trafficked drugs internationally across Montana's broad landscapes. That business was now on the verge of exploding into violence that would permanently alter Whispering Pines due to mounting pressure from all directions. Because now the cartel was sending more than simply murderers. An army was being sent. And the battle for a small Montana town spirit was about to turn into something far more serious. Who would live when all the masks were removed? That was the only question. Documents from Steve Parker revealed a crooked network that extended from the State House to Whispering Pines. Montana's isolated roadways have been transformed into drug arteries worth millions of dollars thanks to a labyrinth of shell firms, offshore accounts, and compromised officials. With trembling hands, Parker presented more proof, explaining that the Steel Vultures were simply the muscle. "We were always merely instruments for larger actors, even though Stone believed he was creating his own kingdom." Eleanor Harper's eyes were steady as she studied the materials. "Why come forward at this time? Since they're doing some housework." Parker was clearly afraid. Those who know too much are being eliminated by the cartel. Stone is unaware that he has already passed away. The rest of us are, too. The kitchen window was broken by gunfire before Parker could say anything further. Bullets ripped through the room where Eleanor and Parker had been sitting, and they fell to the ground. Over Eleanor's hidden radio, David Walker's voice crackled. The hostile team was defeated. "You understand, but we must move." A few moments later, Logan showed up, moving with the accuracy of a war veteran. A two-person sniper squad. Professionals in the cartel. Linda has them zip-tied by David. The violence in town intensified. Outside of the county buildings, Thomas Bennett's vehicle detonated. The message was plain, but the dishonest commissioner lived. The cartel was cutting things short. Linda Cooper, the sheriff, had her own issue. Her remaining dishonest deputies had destroyed records and shut themselves in the evidence room. However, she had expected this. She assured her trusted cops that all of the actual evidence was already secure. They're only demonstrating their guilt, so let them burn. Maria Santos revealed document after document in a live transmission from a secure location. Millions of dollars were paid to state authorities to overlook questionable real estate transactions. Drug corridors were not patrolled because highway patrol routes were changed. Local communities were allowed to be intimidated and dominated by the Steel Vultures. Chaos broke out at the Steel Vultures complex. Victor Stone was caught between his own collapsing organization and the cartel's cleaners. In their residences, 3 of his lieutenants were discovered dead. Others fled for their lives and vanished with money and evidence. The voice on Steve Parker's phone said, "It's over, Stone. I've thrown everything at them. Coming clean is the only way any of us make it through." Stone's reaction was expected. Although his power was eroding, he gave the order for his remaining faithful men to pursue Parker. Every directive was greeted with trepidation and every order was questioned. The neighborhood came together at Bill Anderson's cafe to protest the escalating threat. Security patrols were formed by local veterans. Owners of businesses exchanged information and resources. It was a tense but determined environment. Bill informed the packed diner that they believed they could break us one by one. Rather, they brought us together. From their improvised command center, Logan and David coordinated protection details. According to David, the cartel is now operating quickly. There were 3 other hit squads found entering the county. "Let them come," said Logan. "We get more proof with each step they take. Federal task groups are waiting for Linda. All we have to do is demonstrate our relationship to state representatives." The evidence came from a surprising place. After the attempt on his life, Thomas Bennett, who was hurt and afraid, came to the sheriff's office prepared to speak. He rambled, "I'll tell you everything. Dates, recordings, and names. Just keep me alive." The cartel, however, had expected this. The sheriff's department lost electricity as Bennett started to confess. Shots were fired with surgical accuracy in the brief darkness. Bennett's life was saved by Linda Cooper's rapid thinking, but the message was unmistakable. No matter how well protected a threat was, the cartel would eradicate it. At her farm, which is now protected by a volunteer group of local veterans and dependable deputies, Eleanor Harper got the news. She noticed that they were becoming desperate. Logan concurred, "Desperate is dangerous. It's messy, though." More of their operation is revealed with each attack. As Maria Santos' program went on, additional documents came to light. The acquisition of real estate by the Steel Vultures was not haphazard. Along important trafficking routes, they were setting up a network of safe houses and observation points. However, drugs weren't the source of the real money. It resulted from selling many cartels information regarding federal law enforcement activities. Like a bomb, the revelation exploded across criminal networks. Stone had been selling tactical knowledge to the highest bidders while pitting several cartels against one another. Garcia's superiors gave directives to the cartel representative. "Get rid of Stone and his entire group of people. Don't leave any evidence. Not a witness." The cartel's hit teams, however, were in uncharted terrain when night fell over Whispering Pines. Veterans from the area who were familiar with all the hunting trails and back roads. Farmers who were able to identify strangers at a distance. A group of people who had made the decision to no longer be victims. Stone made one final desperate maneuver after realizing his position was untenable. Unaware that his statements were being filmed and sent to many secure locations, he informed his remaining faithful troops, "If I'm going down, I'm taking this whole town with me." Proof that would guarantee there was no going back. Threats and intimidation were no longer enough in the battle for Whispering Pines. It was survival now. And everyone would have to pick a side in the next few hours. For either freedom or devastation would await the following daybreak. There was no more room for compromise. Flames were the manifestation of Victor Stone's desperation. Outside the sheriff's office, 3 police cars caught fire. As his guys tried to destroy the remaining evidence inside, it served as a distraction. But this was what Linda Cooper had expected. Days previously, all important documents were moved to safe places. Over a secured line, Linda informed Logan that they were becoming careless. Stone's authority over his own people is waning. They're running, half of them. Half of them are betraying one another. The first actual gunfight broke out outside Bill Anderson's cafe when cartel hitmen tried to kill Steve Parker. They were up against the well-prepared defenses of Logan and David, who were local veterans who were familiar with every angle in the community. Front of contact. Their tactical radio buzzed with David's voice. Professional shooters from 2 teams are approaching the diner. The hitman's lack of knowledge with the area negated their accuracy. Mike Foster and 2 other veterans had set up an observation post in the grain elevator, but they were unprepared for backfire. The local expertise that made every rooftop and alley a defensive position caught them off guard. Watching through his scope as the attackers backed off, Logan noted, "This isn't a cartel hit anymore. They make blunders out of desperation." Eleanor was alerted to oncoming cars at the Harper farm. However, she discovered 3 local families looking for refuge rather than assailants. Jenny Thompson, who was assisting her elderly mother from the automobile, explained that the Steel Vultures are burning people out. Whomever they believe could testify against them. Eleanor answered right away. "Food is being sent by Bill Anderson. If we need it, we can find room in the barn. In this town, no one is alone anymore." Before entering protective custody, Maria Santos broadcast her farewell report. The top ranks of state law enforcement have been corrupted. Local authorities warn of an impending increase of violence, but federal agents are on their way. From his property, Stone watched the broadcast, his meticulously built world collapsing around him. 3 more of his lieutenants had been discovered dead after being killed by hitmen from the cartel. Others had run away, bringing evidence with them for protection. "Garcia's men are forming up around the compound, sir," one of his surviving guys reported. "Tonight, they're going to hit us." There was a hint of craziness in Stone's laugh. They believe they can just tidy up their mess and get rid of any evidence. He took out a hard drive from a wall safe. "I am insured. Every cartel connection, corrupt official, and operation is supported and prepared for handover to federal authorities. Is that your strategy?" From the doorway came the voice of Steve Parker. With his weapon aimed at Stone, he had infiltrated during the confusion. "More extortion." "Parker." Stone grinned ruthlessly. "Are you here to plead for your life?" "No, I'm here to show you." Parker gave the window a nod. Cars were driving toward the complex outside. Not federal officers, police cars, cartel hit teams, and, most importantly, local automobiles and trucks around the area. They were encircled by the community. Stone's phone rang. The voice of Logan Harper was clear. "Stone, it's over. Statewide, your cartel friends are being apprehended. Federal prosecutors already have the proof. Now, while you can, give up. Do you believe I'm done?" Stone's voice erupted wildly. "I'm still in control. All of my proof is made public with only one call. I'll burn with the cartels and corrupt officials." "Check your phone," Logan said coolly. "Take a look at what is currently being broadcast." Maria Santos' last broadcast was displayed on Stone's screen, but she was now disclosing documents. His records. He believed the evidence to be securely supported. "How?" Stone became agitated. "You were unaware of the true author of your security procedures, were you?" Logan sounded grimly satisfied. David Walker trained with more than simply SEALs. Naval Intelligence was his name. They were copying all the files you believed to be encrypted. All of your backups were compromised. Stone knew already, but he went to his safe. There would be nothing on the hard drive. The federal government now had his insurance coverage as evidence. Chaos broke out in the compound. Cartel hitmen started cutting loose ends after realizing their goal had been jeopardized. The rest of Stone's soldiers turned against one another, some fought to get away, while others tried to surrender. In town, the togetherness of the people had changed the situation. Every cartel hit team was caught between armed residents defending their town and law enforcement. The locals knew every back route and hiding place, so the professional killer's training advantage was meaningless. In order to apprehend dishonest authorities, Linda Cooper worked with federal tactical teams and used information from Parker and other cooperating witnesses. Cartel-aligned state police forces had to contend with other personnel who had made the decision to oppose corruption. Eleanor saw government helicopters fly toward the Steel Vultures stronghold at the Harper farm. Over their secure line, she said, "Logan. Stone still has a card to play." "The tunnels." "Which tunnels?" "Beneath the complex are the former mining tunnels. I heard about them via Parker. They lead to the state forest in the end." Logan used a poetic curse. "Work with tactical teams, David. We were unaware of Stone's escape path." However, Stone had already begun his last desperate move. The front of the facility was highlighted by the initial modest explosion. Stone and his core group had disappeared underground before anyone grasped the true threat. Linda suggested letting him run. "The evidence is here. He's done." "No," Logan had a harsh voice. "Due to the fact that he is not fleeing. The farm is within half a mile of those tunnels. This has nothing to do with escape. Retaliation is at issue." Eleanor Harper watched the property burn in the distance from her porch. The community had gathered around her. Equipped, prepared, and free of fear. Stone was on his way. He wasn't up against a defenseless elderly woman this time, though. He faced a town that had discovered its courage, its solidarity, and its strength. It was going to get dangerously dark. The residents of Whispering Pines, however, were not terrified of the dark for the first time. They were prepared. The sound of explosions at the Steel Vultures facility was muffled by the rolling thunder across Whispering Pines. Stone's distraction had been a success. He and his core squad navigated the old mine tunnels with practiced efficiency while federal agents secured the blazing structures. They had no intention of escaping. It was retaliation. David Walker monitored many threats from the Sheriff's Department Command Center. Stone's squad is moving underground, 3 cartel killing teams are still working in the town, and unidentified cars are coming from the north. Federal tactical squads were coordinated by Linda Cooper. Units of the state police are corrupted. Any backup that isn't federal cannot be trusted. Parker gave Logan some old mining maps to study. "This is where Stone's group will emerge," he said, pointing to a location close to the Harper property. "They will believe that surprise is on their side." David acknowledged that they are unaware of the seismic sensors. "When they begin to burst through, we'll have 3 minutes notice." The last attacks by the surviving cartel hitmen took place across town. At the same time, 3 companies that belonged to people who had opposed the Steel Vultures caught fire. However, the town was prepared this time. Over the radio, Mike Foster's voice cracked. "Responding are fire crews. The escort is armed. They're attempting to entice us. Split apart our troops. Hold positions," Logan said. "Let them believe it's effective." Eleanor oversaw the evacuation of the families who had taken refuge at the Harper farm, but she wouldn't leave. She told Jenny Thompson that this farm had been there for 3 generations. "I'm not going to let Stone stop me now." At midnight, the first warning was given. Movement beneath the ground was picked up by seismic sensors when it approached the north pasture of the property. Eleanor's radio picked up Logan's voice. 3 minutes. Head for the safe room." "No," Eleanor said coolly. "I am going to be on the porch. I need to have one last talk with Stone." The cartel's hit teams were caught in their own trap in town. Every effort to recruit defenders increased visibility. The streets became a killing field since local veterans knew every building, alley, and line of sight. From there, David organized the defense. Despite their professionalism, they lack local knowledge. Keep them contained. Major routes were blocked by Stone's corrupted state police units, who claimed that a terrorist danger needed to be contained, despite the arrival of federal tactical teams in force. He was buying time with the delay. Stone and his troops arrived to their escape route underground. They had anticipated going unnoticed. Instead, as soon as they broke through, they were surrounded by strong floodlights. Eleanor's voice came plainly from the farmhouse porch, "Welcome back, Mr. Stone. I was anticipating your arrival." Logan's words pierced the darkness as Stone's soldiers ready to start fire. "I wouldn't. Your cartel friends have already been arrested, and you are surrounded. It's finished." Stone growled, "Nothing's over. Do you believe you have won? Old woman, this was never about your farm. Never about this place of no value. You can't even begin to imagine what we created. It was built on fear," Eleanor said. "On harming decent people. On believing that no one would oppose you." Stone gave a gruff laugh. "Opposing me? You're 2 soldiers and 1 obstinate elderly lady. I still have men in 3 states who are devoted to me. In the state capital, friends. Connections that are intangible." "You mean, had them?" Beside Eleanor, Maria Santos entered the porch. "Federal agents were climbing the chain while you were rushing through your tunnels. They've already arrested your friends in the capital. And your faithful men." There was delight in Logan's voice. "Stone, check your phones. Look at how many people are still responding." Stone's face contorted as he took out his phone and saw message after message confirming what Logan had said. Bit by bit, his organization was falling apart. He was no longer protected politically. His ties to the cartel were also on fire. He commanded his remaining men to kill them all. But he found one last treachery at the pivotal moment. The men he had trusted the most, his core squad, dropped their firearms. Quietly, his senior lieutenant said, "It's finished, boss. We give up." Gunfire, not from Stone's position, broke the scream of anger. After ultimately battling their way into the town, the surviving cartel hit team opened fire from several locations. Chaos broke out in the night. The cartel experts were captivated by Logan and David's well-prepared defenses. When federal agents arrived, local defenders coordinated with them. Fields that had been peaceful for generations were the scene of the decisive struggle for Whispering Pines. Stone recognized his opportunity in the turmoil. With a military-grade explosive device in hand, he rushed for the farmhouse, breaking away from his surrendering troops. Eleanor Harper didn't flinch. "I'm taking you with me if I'm finished." Her soft voice broke over the gunfire as Stone arrived at the porch steps. "Now, Martha." The taser shot that dropped Stone was never seen. Mike Foster had given Jenny Thompson a weapon, and her old mother, Martha, had been waiting inside the door. My friend said firmly that no one threatens her in her own home. Although the cartel's hit teams fought with professional skill while trapped between local defenders and federal tactical teams, skill was meaningless in the face of a united community battling for its own. Using Parker's knowledge to predict the hitman strategy, Linda Cooper organized the last push. The trained killers were outnumbered and overpowered one by one. A transformed cityscape was illuminated by dawn. The remainder of Stone's organization was taken by federal agents. When faced with abundant proof, the dishonest state police units gave up, and the residents of Whispering Pines came out of their houses fearless. While federal officers processed inmates on her front lawn, Logan discovered Eleanor still sitting on her porch, sipping coffee calmly. "You were aware that they would seek retribution here." Naturally, she grinned a little. David joined them with a contented look. Men like Stone can't take being beaten by someone they believe to be weak, but he never grasped what true strength is. Last count. 38 arrests, including all of Stone's superiors. Teams from the federal government are ascending to the state level. The cartel has completed its Montana operation. What about the town? Logan inquired. Linda Cooper and Maria Santos stood together and responded. Rebuilding is already being discussed in order to ensure that something similar doesn't occur again. Eleanor saw her fields turn gold as the sun Eleanor. Through drought, storms, and adversity, the farm had endured for 3 generations. It had now survived a worse thing, the evil that develops when good people remain silent. Will you remain? Quietly, she asked Logan. He grinned for a time. Officially, David and I are on long-term leave. The Navy apparently believes that dismantling a significant narcotics organization is good public relations. As he watched his empire fall apart, Stone was handcuffed in a federal transport truck. Because he had threatened a single, obstinate elderly woman on a little Montana farm, everything he had worked so hard to build, all his political ties and cartel alliances, was shattered. But he never realized the true lesson as he was dragged away by federal authorities. The Steel Vultures had failed because they had overlooked a vital fact about America's small communities, not because they had encountered a Navy SEAL on his team. Once it was awakened, community was more powerful than any amount of intimidation or violence. And occasionally, the most courageous moments were not found in spectacular conflicts but rather in small acts of solidarity against evil. Maria Santos would pen that tale, revealing to the world how a little town triumphed over corruption. The true story, however, was written in the quieter times, when neighbors helped one another rebuild, when friendships and trust were re-established, and when people realized they had confronted evil together and come out stronger. It was the end of the Whispering Pines conflict. But in a town that had rediscovering its heart, its strength, and its solidarity, its legacy would endure. Whispering Pines appeared to be a war zone the morning following the last fight. Teams of federal crime scene investigators investigated several sites, leaving evidence markers like vivid yellow flowers around the streets. Although the fires had long since been put out, smoke continued to rise from 3 buildings that the cartel's hit teams had set on fire. Agents cataloged shell casings and bullet strikes while Logan Harper watched from Bill Anderson's cafe. Although the town will bear these wounds for years, the violence had been controlled and was professional rather than sporadic. David Walker stated that he was joined with fresh coffee by a call from the federal Eleanor Harper's office. Stone is attempting to negotiate. He's given them how many names? So far, 37. State representatives, dishonest police officers, and cartel associates, but something doesn't feel right. Logan gave a nod. He's giving up contacts and outdated information. He's still defending something larger. Linda Cooper encountered her own difficulties with the sheriff's department. Stone's group had been linked to 4 additional deputies. Due to a severe staffing shortage, the department had to rely on state police and federal agents from outside the area to keep the peace. According to Paul Turner, we have cops arriving from 3 counties who have all been screened by the federal government. But rebuilding the agency will take months. This time, rebuild it correctly, Linda said. No more averting your gaze. No more minor concessions. Maria Santos brought proof of growing corruption on her laptop when she arrived at the Harper farm. Drugs were not the only aspect of Stone's enterprise. They were playing cartels against one another by selling intelligence to several of them. Eleanor Harper meticulously examined the documents and used the money she made to purchase political clout. How far down does it go? At the state level, possibly at the federal level. According to my sources, there may be ties to global money laundering schemes. Before Maria could explain, the kitchen window was broken by gunfire. Bullets ripped through the room, sending everyone to the ground. This attack, however, was unique. It was irrational, unprofessional, and motivated more by anger than by strategic thinking. Logan, the local gunman, spoke over their radios. He's surrounded by David on the north pasture. The gunman turned out to be Thomas Bennett's son, who was intoxicated and out for retribution for his father's detention. However, the incident brought attention to a developing issue. Numerous locals, many with familial ties in the area, had been employed by Stone's company. Every arrest raised the possibility of reprisals. Victor Stone played a cautious game while in federal detention. He carefully considered each piece of information he disclosed in order to preserve his credibility as an informant and safeguard his most sensitive knowledge. He said to FBI agents, "You're not seeing the complete picture. While you squander time on small-town drug routes, the Steel Vultures were only one part of a larger system that continues to function." However, Stone was unaware that those who knew this game much better than he did were watching his effort at manipulation. Given his training in intelligence, David Walker was able to decipher Stone's silence. David observed, looking at transcripts, that he continues bringing up businesses in 3 states. However, the financial documents reveal that funds are passing via 5 more jurisdictions. "Follow the gaps," said Logan. More significant than what he is disclosing is what he is attempting to conceal. The inquiry quickly grew. Federal authorities found evidence of widespread corruption in several law enforcement agencies, arrested judges in 3 counties, and raided offices in the state capital. However, new threats surfaced for each conspirator they apprehended. No one had anticipated the depth of Stone's global ties. The cartels he had previously pitted against one another now had a desire to have him and anyone with too much information quietly destroyed. The neighborhood came together to talk about rebuilding at Bill Anderson's diner. The gathering brought to light both ongoing risks and advancements. Veterans with guns were still on duty outside, keeping an eye out for danger. For the first time in months, however, there was a free exchange of ideas within. According to Jenny Thompson, insurance won't pay for all of the damage. They are asserting exclusions for civil upheaval. Then, Bill Anderson said, "We'll reconstruct ourselves. My diner remains intact. Crews working on reconstruction will utilize it as a base." Although the solidarity was admirable, it also caused resentment. Openly opposing what was left of Stone's organization put anyone at risk of reprisals. Eleanor Harper resisted being threatened. She put threatening letters on her front door as they came in. She sat on her porch with her shotgun and turned on all the lights when late-night callers tried to intimidate her, challenging them to come. One evening, she told Logan, "They still don't understand. Fear is only effective if you allow it to rule you." However, the threat was genuine and increasing. Maria Santos' ongoing inquiry uncovered connections between influential people in international banking and Stone's enterprise. Numerous numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland suggested widespread money laundering. She informed Logan and David that someone was attempting to hide this narrative. Major advertisers, anonymous threats, and even offers to purchase the entire paper are all putting pressure on my editor. "Keep digging," Logan said. Stone sacrificed his local operations, albeit cautiously, in order to save something larger. We must discover what. Through seemingly unconnected episodes, the solution started to emerge. 20 years' worth of records were destroyed in a fire at the county records office. Inexplicably, an evidence locker belonging to the state police was compromised. In trials involving corruption, 3 witnesses perished in what appeared to be accidents. David said the patterns were too neat. Expert cleansers, eliminating historical traces. More unsettling news was provided by Linda Cooper. "I recently received word from federal marshals. In detention, Stone has been attacked. A professional hit. Made to appear to be a spontaneous altercation in a prison. They're wrapping things up," Logan said. The apex of the pyramid was never Stone. He worked for a larger company as middle management. The source of the information was unexpected. A name in Maria's investigation was identified by Steve Parker, Stone's former lieutenant who is currently under protective custody. He pointed to a document and remarked, "That shell company. Stone didn't own it." He claimed that they possessed the true power and could make anyone vanish, which is why he was afraid of them. Others followed the name. Corporations within corporations that all pointed to a clandestine group that specialized in leveraging corruption in small towns to establish large-scale criminal businesses. Maria laid out her facts and stated that they find spots like Whispering Pines, off the main grid and in quiet towns. They set up money laundering schemes, create drug routes, and send individuals like Stone to dishonest local officials. The malignancy is too deep to remove by the time anyone notices what's going on. However, they had failed this time. The power of a community that refused to be broken was something they had not anticipated. A Navy SEAL with knowledge of asymmetric warfare was unexpected. A granny who wouldn't be scared off her land was unexpected. Decades of illegal activities were now being exposed by that failure, and the group responsible was getting ready to strike back with overwhelming force. The conflict over Whispering Pines had not ended. It would soon develop into something far more hazardous. Some adversaries intensify because they refuse to concede defeat. The threat had changed with the dawn as two black vehicles with diplomatic plates rolled into murmuring trees. These were neither local muscle nor cartel hitmen. The men who came out were dressed in fitted suits and exuded the serene assurance of experienced assassins who worked on a global scale. David Walker used his surveillance images to identify European freelancers. Upscale contractors, the type that governments choose when they want issues resolved discreetly. Logan looked at the pictures. They have no intention of hiding. They want us to be aware of their presence. Eleanor had an unexpected guest at the Harper property. A multinational investment organization was represented by a well-dressed man with a sophisticated British accent who introduced himself as Mr. Phillips. "My employers are prepared to pay 10 times the market worth of your farm, Mrs. Harper." He gave a warm smile. "No difficulties, no questions. Simply sign the documents and have a comfortable retirement." Eleanor gave a typical response. "They sent those handsome men in the black K automobiles, and your bosses are the same ones?" Phillips was always smiling. "Although they are willing to adopt alternative approaches if needed, my employers prefer to settle disputes through commercial channels." Eleanor gently answered, "Tell your employers they're not the first to threaten me. Their failure won't be the last." The pressure systematically increased in town. Maria Santos learned that an offshore corporation had covertly acquired the parent company of her newspaper. Her probe was essentially killed when her editor was ordered to transfer her. At Bill Anderson's diner, she told Logan, "They're trying to bury the story. But first, check out what I discovered." A decades-long trend emerged from the records. The group had previously established criminal networks under the pretense of respectable companies, taken over small towns, and corrupted local administrations. David examined the evidence and pointed out that Stone's operation was only one franchise. Similar configurations can be seen in numerous locations throughout several nations. More unsettling news was provided by Linda Cooper. Significant bribes had been offered to 3 of her recently appointed deputies. She clarified that they are not merely attempting to corrupt us. They are compiling lists of people who cannot be purchased. The town received a clear message from the professional killers who continued to be conspicuous. However, their actual labor took place in the background. The Federal Protective Detail led by Steve Parker found that their safe home was being watched by advanced surveillance technology. In the Stone case, 2 government witnesses perished in separate jurisdictions in what appeared to be accidents. At the Harper property, Logan convened the leaders of the town. He clarified that they are adhering to a standard playbook. They start by making a financial offer. They then exert pressure. Lastly, those who refuse to cooperate are eliminated. However, David noted, something's different this time. They're taking chances and moving more quickly than normal. They're shaken by something in this setting. Maria Santos attested to this conclusion. According to my sources, Stone's arrest jeopardized activities across several nations. Small places like Whispering Pines are suddenly of great interest to law enforcement authorities in Europe and Asia. At midnight, the professional killers launched their first attack. At the same time, 3 different teams strike objectives: Steve Parker's safe house, Linda Cooper's house, and Maria's flat. However, this was what Logan and David had expected. Maria had already been moved to a safe place. Surveillance equipment was set up in Linda's unoccupied house to record the hit squad in action. Furthermore, Parker's safe haven turned out to be a trap. The attackers discovered that federal tactical troops were all around them. Immediately, the group responded. Phillips returned to the Harper property with the same amiable manner. He responded smoothly, "Mrs. Harper, you must realize that there is only one possible outcome to this situation. We cannot let this bad company jeopardize more important objectives. Larger interests, such as the banking operations in Singapore, the shipping companies in Hamburg, and the real estate developments in Toronto," Eleanor echoed carefully. Philip's mask moved a bit. None of the evidence they had found addressed those operations. Yes, Eleanor grinned a little. Stone never knew nearly as much as we do. Did your bosses truly believe that we would wage this struggle without discovering our true adversary? After that chat, the threat level quickly increased. An even more lethal crew took the place of the professional killers. These operators disappeared like phantoms, leaving only their results behind. In a single night, Bill Anderson's diner escaped 3 distinct arson attempts. Experts sabotaged Jenny Thompson's store, turning off the alarm without leaving any trace. Professionals who were familiar with their procedures even stalked the federal agents who were protecting the witnesses. However, the company had committed a critical error. Their forceful reaction validated the significance of Maria's findings. As she presented fresh proof to Logan and David, she clarified that they weren't merely attempting to safeguard their ongoing operations. They are concealing a more significant issue that dates back several decades. Unexpectedly, the breakthrough was made. One of the shell corporations in Maria's inquiry was identified by Thomas Bennett, the dishonest commissioner currently detained by the federal government. He pointed to the name and continued, "That's not just a front for money laundering." Stone once referred to them as the Foundation and said that they were the ones in charge of actual operations. The naming led to new research directions. Over the course of 50 years, David's intelligence contacts started to uncover links to significant criminal activities. He said the Foundation is not just another criminal group. They're older. Their areas of expertise include money laundering, drug routes, political corruption, and building infrastructure for other criminal companies. They create the networks that are used by others. Logan came to the conclusion that Whispering Pines posed a threat to that infrastructure. Not only did Stone's arrest jeopardize ongoing activities, but it also revealed decades-old trends. The threat became increasingly complex. The town's communications are attacked by cybercriminals. Accounts were frozen due to banking problems. Deliveries of supplies were inexplicably delayed or redirected. However, the Foundation was surprised by the community's reaction. People turned to more antiquated techniques, such as runners and hand signals, when communication was interrupted. They turned back to local credit and barter networks when money was stopped. They adapted and pooled resources when supplies were cut off. As the town came together, Eleanor noted that they had no idea what they were actually fighting for. They believe that power or money are at stake here. It's about community, which they cannot purchase or threaten. She was correct, as the Foundation's next action demonstrated. By spreading stories, fabricating shortages, and attempting to set neighbors against one another, they sought to split the village. Rather, they sparked the very thing they were attempting to avoid: complete solidarity against a shared foe. The conflict over Whispering Pines had taken on a new dimension. In the fight against a global criminal organization that had been operating covertly for decades, a little Montana hamlet was now at the center of the conflict. The Foundation possessed the means, the skilled murderers, and the political contacts. However, they were going to discover what Stone had discovered too late. Certain things could not be purchased, intimidated, or destroyed. A few objects retaliated. Information was the first weapon in the Foundation's psychological assault. Each Whispering Pines homeowner received a handwritten letter outlining their family problems, financial vulnerabilities, and personal secrets. It was an obvious message. They have complete knowledge of everyone. David Walker described the classic intelligence operation during the emergency community meeting held in Bill Anderson's cafe. They are attempting to alienate people and make them feel particularly exposed. However, the Foundation's plan backfired. People shared their letters publicly rather than in secret. Jenny Thompson displayed hers in the window of her shop. At the diner, Bill Anderson read his aloud. Instead of severing community bonds, each shared secret served as a glue. As Eleanor saw people comparing letters and laughing at the Foundation's intimidation efforts, she noted that they still didn't comprehend what they were dealing with. They believe that secrets give them power, but you have to allow secrets to have power. Something more unsettling had been discovered by Logan's investigation. He laid old maps on the diner counter and said that the Foundation had been interested in this area since the 1960s. For decades, they have been purchasing real estate through shell corporations. When Maria Santos came with more proof, she discovered documents of 50-year-old underground building projects that were all declared abandoned yet had satellite thermal imaging showing operational facilities. How far down does it go? While looking at the maps, Linda Cooper inquired. Very, David said. The stone from the ancient mine tunnel? They are only superficial. Beneath the town is an extensive system of bunkers and facilities. The following action taken by the Foundation showed how sophisticated they were. Discrepancies appeared in all of the town's digital records. To cause legal turmoil, bank accounts, property deeds, and tax records were all covertly changed. According to Linda, they are attempting to overwhelm us with paperwork and cause so many administrative issues that we are unable to concentrate on opposing them. But this was what Eleanor Harper had expected. For decades, she had preserved all of her paper records in fireproof safes. She was followed by other long-standing residents who produced historical documents that refuted the digital modifications. The Foundation reacted violently and immediately. Targeting the paper records, professional teams simultaneously struck 3 places. Fake paperwork and empty safes were discovered. Federal custody already had the actual records. As Logan watched security footage of the raids, he observed that they were becoming careless. Committing errors that they wouldn't typically make. They feel pressured to perform more quickly than they would like to. The source of the solution was surprising. Still in federal jail, Victor Stone asked Logan to meet with him immediately. Stone's customary cockiness gave way to real terror as he remarked, "You don't understand what you've stumbled into. There is more to the Foundation than crime. They're constructing something. Something significant." Stone, what are they building? Infrastructure. Not only for money laundering or drugs. They are building networks of shadows. Systems for alternative banking. Routes used for transportation. Avenues of communication. They have been creating a parallel universe within the real one for 50 years. Stone's statements were validated by Maria's inquiry. Through the use of tiny villages like Whispering Pines, the Foundation had been methodically building covert infrastructure throughout several nations. "Observe the pattern," she said, presenting her proof to Logan and David. After establishing authority over remote areas, they construct their facilities underground. In their network, every town turns into a node. This evidence became the focus of the Foundation's top teams. Maria was the target of 3 different, increasingly complex attempts to have her removed, but the society had learned to defend its own. Foundation agents encountered local veterans who were familiar with every inch of the town when they tried to apprehend Maria outside her office. Professional hackers targeted David's installed defensive systems when they attempted to delete her digital files. Assassins entered designated assassination areas as they got closer to her safe residence. David noted that they're not accustomed to this type of opposition. Their typical strategies rely on people feeling alone and scared to defend themselves. Everything changed when the subterranean facilities were discovered. The full extent of the Foundation's activities became apparent when federal personnel started mapping the network of bunkers. Logan told the local leaders that it's more than just transportation or storage. They have constructed backup facilities for every aspect of their business. Communications hubs, computer centers, and even residences. If necessary, they could operate everything from underground. Eleanor paid close attention to the facility maps. Isn't the primary entry point beneath my farm? That's why they were so interested in the property. David confirmed that your farm is located at the intersection of 3 major tunnel networks. It is an important strategic site. The following strike by the Foundation demonstrated how important it was. Elite combat teams attacked several targets at once as they emerged from secret gates spread across the town. This was no longer about intimidation. It was about safeguarding their infrastructure and getting rid of witnesses. However, the town was ready for this. Every method was covered, every aim was encouraged. Because Foundation teams were fighting in foreign territory against people who knew every inch of the ground, local knowledge took precedence over professional preparation. From her mobile command center, Linda Cooper oversaw the defense. They are attempting to get to particular places, such as computer centers and equipment storage facilities. They are not merely assaulting us. They are attempting to safeguard something. David's technology intercepted the Foundation's encrypted communications, which revealed the truth. They weren't merely attempting to keep up illegal activities or quiet witnesses. They were safeguarding decades' worth of data, evidence that would reveal activities on several continents. Maria understood that's why they can't simply leave. It's not just another tainted operation, Whispering Pines. It is an essential component of their whole network. Everything falls if it does. As Foundation teams attempted to get to their underground facilities, the fighting grew more intense. But there was ready opposition to every endeavor. The solidarity of the community outlasted professional aggression. Following yet another unsuccessful attack, Logan observed the Foundation teams withdraw. Next, they'll attempt something more ambitious. Something desperate. Let them, said Eleanor coolly. They attract more attention the larger they make this. Additionally, sunshine is beginning to penetrate all of their shadowy areas. She was correct. The Foundation's more overt acts have exposed evidentiary trails that were being pursued by international law enforcement agencies. Decades of meticulous secrecy were coming undone. However, the most dangerous predators are those that are cornered. There was still one more card for the Foundation to play. A backup plan that would put the togetherness of Whispering Pines to the ultimate test. The actual conflict was about to start. Quietly, the Foundation started its backup plan. All of Whispering Pines' communication devices died at once. Internet, radio, phones, and even emergency frequencies. The village was isolated from the outside world to a greater extent than appeared feasible from a technology standpoint. Some sort of advanced signal jamming system has been activated, David Walker said, examining his apparatus. More sophisticated than anything I've ever seen, but military grade. Logan saw the ramifications at once. They are separating us in anticipation of a major event. Mr. Phillips paid Eleanor what was supposed to be his last visit at the Harper farm. Cold efficiency had taken the place of his refined exterior. You've made us adopt Protocol Zero, he said bluntly. It's up to you what happens next. Furthermore, what is Protocol Zero? Eleanor inquired, although she knew the answer already. The total destruction of all compromised assets, including all personnel involved. The elite teams of the Foundation started to appear from secret entrances all across the town, but their strategies had evolved. They were methodically moving people toward the town center rather than focusing on certain areas. The community's reaction was organized by Linda Cooper from Bill Anderson's Diner. They are no longer attempting to eradicate us. They urge us to stay indoors. Managed. Maria Santos brought important information. Discovered anything in the encrypted files of the Foundation. This goes beyond the infrastructure of crime. The subterranean facilities are a component of a clandestine government initiative from the Cold War named Project Echo. David pointed out that explains the amount of technology. It was not criminals who constructed these bunkers. The military constructed them before the Foundation took control of them. The strategic significance of Whispering Pines was revealed. The village was situated at the meeting point of many subterranean structures that were first built as Cold War survival bunkers. These sites had been covertly acquired by the Foundation for decades, and they were transformed into its own private infrastructure. Logan saw that the illegal activities were a front. The money laundering and narcotics trafficking were all a front for what they were actually constructing. Maria confirmed that it was a shadow government. Comprehensive backup infrastructure to continue key operations in the event that regular systems malfunction. Everything required to keep the government in power even in the event that normal institutions fail, including banking, communications, and transportation. Teams from the Foundation carried on with their methodical work, handling any opposition with advanced crowd control tools. However, they were surprised by the town's reaction. Rather than panicking, the community carried out its own long-term objectives. People vanished into designated rally spots and concealed shelters. Armed opposition emerged from all sides, countering the Foundation's tactical advantages with in-depth knowledge of the area. As she watched from her porch as another Foundation squad was forced to retreat, Eleanor remarked, "They believe that technology makes them superior. However, they have no idea what counts most in a conflict like this." More surprises emerged from the subterranean facilities. Advanced communication systems, sophisticated monitoring equipment, and data centers holding confidential information from all around the world were discovered by federal teams that were able to access the lower levels. According to David, this isn't just one node in their network. This is a significant command center. From here, they can keep an eye on and control operations on several continents. The Foundation's desperation was evident in its response to these intrusions. Elite squads destroyed equipment and evidence as they started using scorched earth procedures. But there was ready opposition to every attempt at destruction. Logan told the local authorities that they are no longer only defending illegal activities. They are attempting to conceal their ties to top-level power brokers, multinational corporations, and government organizations. The last piece of the puzzle came from Victor Stone, who is still in federal detention. An outdated Cold War initiative gave rise to the Foundation. In the event that the normal government collapsed, they were meant to be the fallback option. However, they evolved into a shadow power structure that was behind the scenes, controlling events. Teams from the Foundation tried to enter secret data vaults under the town hall, but were stopped by Linda Cooper's officers. Another important element came to light during the ensuing combat. These were not merely professional killers or mercenaries. They were government operators with training who had gone awry. David cautioned, "This goes higher than we imagined. These men possess high-level clearance and formal credentials. Technically, they are a component of something that does not exist." The last stage of the Foundation's contingency plan began. More elite teams with cutting-edge tactical equipment were revealed as secret entrances started to open up throughout the town. They had a clear mission. Remo. V every witness, remove every piece of evidence, and get rid of Whispering Pines entirely. However, the town's reaction showed why the Foundation's standard strategies had not worked in this case. When communications were interrupted, runners and antiquated signals were utilized. They encountered hunters who were well versed in the area when they used advanced weaponry. They encountered a well-organized resistance that had prepared for this time when they attempted to herd people into areas under control. As they saw another Foundation squad flee from ready-made defenses, Eleanor said to Logan, "They still don't understand. They believe that technology and weapons are the source of power, but collective action is what truly possesses power." Maria Santos was correct, as evidenced by her most recent discovery. According to the Foundation's records, such activities were carried out in other cities and nations. However, the first location where their planned invasion had failed was Whispering Pines. Logan understood that it was not about the technology. Even their tactical advantages are irrelevant. They were unable to destroy the spirit of the town, which is why they failed here. This failure prompted an unusual response from the Foundation. Before the following stage started, Mr. Phillips sent out one more message. His voice was heard via recorded radio channels, and you had us use maximum containment. There will be no survivors, no traces, and the entire area will be cleansed. However, Montana was gaining international attention even while he was speaking. Several agencies had identified substantial signal jamming by the Foundation. The actions of their elite team had caught the attention of satellites. They were emerging from the shadows they had lurked in for decades. The Foundation was about to discover that some things can never be buried once they are exposed to light, and the battle for Whispering Pines was about to go global. In addition to deciding the fate of a little Montana community, the course of the following day would reveal a long-running conspiracy that had secretly influenced global events. It was almost time for the last battle. Precision strikes against critical infrastructure at Whispering Pines marked the start of the Foundation's maximum containment protocol. All around the grid, power transformers detonated at the same time. Water mains broke at strategic intersections. Accidents involving unmarked trucks purposely obstructed roads. David Walker noted from their command center in the reinforced basement of Bill Anderson that they were no longer only separating us. The town is being forced to evacuate, surrender, or become unsustainable. Logan looked at the tactical monitors that depicted the movements of the Foundation squad. No, everyone is being herded into containment zones that have already been chosen. This has nothing to do with evacuation. Elimination is the key. Eleanor confronted the Foundation's leadership at the Harper farm. Instead of their typical proxies, the organization's real decision-makers arrived in 3 black SUVs. These weren't operators or mercenaries. They were politicians, power brokers, and board members accustomed to working in the background. Their spokesperson, Mrs. Harper, said, "You've forced a very difficult decision. We cannot tolerate the attention this matter has received." Eleanor gave a typical response. "Do you mean that people are finally realizing who you are? What have you been up to for all these years?" Another board member insisted that we kept the peace. Brought about stability. Despite its inability to perceive or comprehend it, the world requires structure. "You made corruption," Eleanor said. "To defend your authority, you called it an order." This defiance prompted an immediate response from the Foundation. Elite teams started conducting methodical sweeps across the town, directing citizens toward certain areas with the use of cutting-edge riot control gear and non-lethal weaponry. However, the community's opposition had developed beyond the limits of its procedures. In hardened areas, backup generators kicked in when they lost power. Prepositioned reserves were tapped when they interfered with water supplies. Alternate routes that had been previously identified opened when they obstructed roads. The defense was coordinated by Linda Cooper from mobile command stations that changed positions often. They believed that we would become isolated if we stopped communicating. Rather, it triggered our contingency measures. The truth could not be concealed because of Maria Santos's efforts. According to her, everything has been uploaded to safe servers throughout the globe. If something were to happen to us, Dead Men Switches would reveal all the evidence. The board members of the Foundation were icy coldly incensed at this revelation. "You don't know what you're interfering with," their spokesperson informed Eleanor. Our systems keep things from getting out of control. Everything falls apart if we are not in charge. Order isn't control, Eleanor said. Furthermore, fear is not strength. The struggle for the subterranean amenities grew more fierce. In an effort to erase proof of decades of manipulation, Foundation personnel made an effort to access vital data centers. They discovered every access point ready, with defenders who were well-versed in the terrain covering every approach. Logan oversaw the defense from a variety of locations, utilizing local expertise to offset the Foundation's tactical advantages. He saw their attack patterns and said, "They're trying to reach something specific. At the lowest levels, perhaps." This was validated by David's analysis. They no longer only want their own data. They are attempting to safeguard an older object. From the initial government project, perhaps. Victor Stone gave the last important piece of information while in government custody. There was evidence of how it all began in the lowest bunker levels. How they created their own private empire out of a government preparedness program. Names, dates, and documentation of each crime, murder, and manipulation. Increasing requests from the Foundation's board members betrayed their desperation. "You have no idea what exposure would entail," they said to Eleanor. "The system would fall apart. Governments would collapse. The markets would plummet." "Perhaps they ought to," Eleanor replied coolly. "Perhaps that is the result of basing everything on false information." The Foundation was unable to manage the attention the situation garnered. They were caught using their signal jamming equipment by satellite surveillance. The communications outage was investigated by international agencies. Unauthorized planes entering Montana airspace were detected by military radar. One board member snapped, telling their top teams that they were going to find out what true containment meant. Put the final protocol into action. Not a witness. No proof. Not a trace. However, the Foundation encountered unheard of opposition to its meticulously designed procedures. Their squads discovered deserted neighborhoods and set up ambush spots as they attempted to herd individuals into confinement zones. They encountered concerted opposition from several sides when they tried to breach entrenched positions. What they are fighting for is still a mystery to them. Logan informed the local authorities. They believe that this has to do with strategy and technology. People are defending their homes. The last mysteries of the subterranean facilities were exposed. Beyond their wildest expectations, federal teams that accessed the lowest levels discovered proof. Evidence of decades of meddling. Evidence of institutionalized corruption. Records of offenses that were reported to several governments' top authorities. After looking through the information, Maria stated, "This isn't just about one organization. This is about a system, a mindset that prioritizes control and power over all other considerations." Reports of increasing desperation were sent to the board members of the Foundation. Their top teams were losing players. Their procedures were not working. Their meticulously preserved secrecy was coming undone. Their spokesperson warned Eleanor, "You've doomed everyone. Everything falls apart once this is released." "No," Eleanor clarified. "When this escapes, you fall apart. We'll rebuild something better, the rest of us. Something tangible." The last move by the Foundation was brutal. They gave their crews orders to destroy everything, even their own employees, and follow scorched earth procedures. There could be no traces left. They had waited too long, though. Whispering Pines has drawn attention from all across the world. The situation was being monitored by several agencies. The Foundation had emerged from the shadows it had been hiding in for decades. As Logan saw the board members of the Foundation realize they had lost power, he noted that they had never seen the true flaw in their system. They believed that controlling knowledge and instilling fear were the sources of power. Eleanor concluded that choosing truth above fear and standing together are the sources of true strength. The battle for truth against decades of created lies had grown out of the war for Whispering Pines. And they would get their last lesson when the Foundation's meticulously built world started to fall apart. Certain things are beyond our control. Some folks are unbreakable. Furthermore, once revealed, some realities cannot be concealed. Overnight, Murmuring Pines were transformed by international attention. The airspace was observed by military helicopters. Peripheries were created by federal tactical units. As they broadcast conjecture regarding the communications outage and the enigmatic government presence, news crews gathered at blockaded access points. In a desperate move, the board members of the Foundation withdrew to its central command bunker. As they prepared for a last stand, their best teams gathered around important facilities. David Walker, looking at surveillance footage, said they're not attempting to flee. In that center bunker, they are guarding something special, something that is worth dying for. Logan understood what that meant. They believe they still have one more card to play, which could save them. Eleanor had an unexpected guest at the Harper farm. From the final Foundation SUV, an old man stepped out, walking with the cautious dignity of someone accustomed to actual authority. Even the board members bowed in his presence. "Mrs. Harper," he muttered. "My name is Alexander Kane. I founded the Foundation 50 years ago. I'm here to explain why it needs to be kept safe." "Saved?" Eleanor had a steely voice. "You mean your control and corruption system?" Kane demanded that we avoided turmoil. Handled disputes. Kept the equilibrium. The world slips into anarchy without us. From her mobile command center, Linda Cooper communicated with arriving government agencies. The FBI, CIA, and military intelligence are among the many authorities that are merging. They're subsurface facilities that everyone wants to control. Maria Santos added, looking at recently deciphered data, because they all have something to hide. Not all illicit enterprises were manipulated by the Foundation. They oversaw business plots and government secrets. Powerful people wanted everything to remain silent. Precision strikes started the assault for the Central Command bunker. Combat-hardened defenders and advanced security technologies were deployed by Foundation teams. However, they were up against opponents who had figured out how to negate every edge they had. Veterans from the area who were familiar with all the routes. Official authorization codes are used by federal agents. People from the community who had plotted each maintenance tunnel and ventilation shaft. Intimate understanding of the area did not negate the Foundation's technological superiority. Logan led the attack from a variety of angles. In order to protect something in the central vault, they are descending back to the lowest levels. David mentioned several server rooms. Systems for quantum encryption. Before we get there, they're attempting to clean up the data. Kane seemed pained as he saw the Foundation's defenses fall apart. "You have no idea what you're ruining. We created systems that keep the world stable. Everything falls apart if we are not in charge." "Stability is not control," Eleanor retorted. "It's corruption all over again." By issuing more drastic directives, the Foundation's board members exposed their ultimate desperation. They told their troops to follow Omega guidelines. It is preferable for everything to burn rather than fall into their clutches. However, their own operators started to doubt directives. Professional assassins and protocol-trained tactical units were forced to make moral decisions. A few gave up. Others switched sides, offering vital information on the activities of the Foundation. From a safe place, Maria Santos coordinated with the world's media. Evidence is being made public all across the world. Decades of manipulation, financial records, and political plots. They are revealing everything they attempted to conceal. The meticulously managed networks of the Foundation started to fall apart. Corrupt officials were arrested once their records were made public. Criminal organizations were no longer protected. As investigators gathered evidence, corporate plots fell apart. As Kane watched his company fall apart, he told Eleanor, "You've destroyed 50 years of work, decades of meticulously upheld discipline." "No," Eleanor said. 50 years of deception have come to light. You invoked order to defend your reign after decades of corruption. It was the culmination of the fight for the central vault. The most advanced defenses were put in place by Foundation teams. Security measures intended to thwart intrusions at the highest levels of government. Combat operators with the best training available. However, they encountered adversaries who had mastered the ability to collaborate, adjust, and improvise in ways that their protocols were unable to manage. Human inventiveness opposed any technical advantage. Every tactical move encountered ready opposition. They still don't understand, Logan said as he organized the last attack. They believe that training and technology ensure success. They never discovered what actually prevails in conflicts. In the Central Command Center, the board members of the Foundation made their final stand. They started what they thought was their final contingency while surrounded by televisions depicting their crumbling kingdom. They broadcast on all frequencies that we would fall. Everything drops. All the secrets. Every plot. Every secret reality. Everything is made public. The whole system crashes. Do you believe that puts us in danger? It was evident from Linda Cooper's remark. All along, we have been battling for the truth. Kane watched with seeming resignation as his life's effort fell apart. The ensuing mayhem is unimaginable. The disputes we have handled. The conflicts we have avoided. The equilibrium we've preserved. Everything hinged on control. No, Eleanor clarified. It was all based on fear. On giving the impression that others required your authority. Today is the last day of that. The last secret of the Foundation was exposed by the last Central Vault breach. Not merely information or proof, but evidence of something more substantial. A planned plot to use created fear and controlled chaos to influence world events. Looking through the archives, Maria concluded that this was never about money or criminality. Power was at issue here. About giving the impression that the world required their authority in order to operate. The top teams from the Foundation had to make their ultimate decision. You can either help reveal the truth or keep battling for a dying system. Truth was the choice of many. Others, who believed in the order they had served, battled until the very end. Logan oversaw the Foundation's property's methodical security. They believed they could stay in charge indefinitely. I never realized that fear-based control invariably ends in failure. Teams led by David started to get access to the Foundation's secure servers. This is more profound than anyone could have guessed. Decades of deceit. There are thousands of plots. Managed chaos served as the foundation for the entire system. Kane tried one more time to defend his invention. Real chaos results from uncontrolled anarchy. Real dread comes when fear is not controlled. We were required. No. Eleanor sounded firmly convinced. Simply put, you were strong individuals persuading others that they required your influence. Now that's over it. The revelation of the Foundation's actual purpose set off a chain reaction around the world. Investigations that were started in several nations revealed our hidden networks, exposing decades of fabricated crises. The emphasis, however, stayed local in Whispering Pines. A community that chose courage in the face of fear. People who had realized how strong they were as a group. The conflict had not ended. The Foundation's impact was too great for a hasty conclusion. However, a fundamental shift had occurred. They were no longer concealed by shadows. Their greatest power goes with them. For certain things are more powerful than fear. Certain truths are uncontrollable. Furthermore, some conflicts are won by common people banding together to fight evil rather than by using force or authority. At midnight, the Foundation's automated fail-safe systems came online. Sleeper mechanisms caused financial disasters to cascade over 3 continents. Grids of power varied. Viruses that were pre-programmed ruined communication networks. Decades of meticulous planning intended to demonstrate that without their authority, the world could not function. Alexander Kane calmly revealed from his shielded location in the command bunker that it was the dead man's switch. Everything falls if we do. That was always our power's last assurance. Eleanor received tales of escalating chaos at the Harper farm and watched military aircraft buzz overhead. She informed Logan that they were attempting to demonstrate that we required their type of control. Attempting to impose their shadow on the globe. The now detained board members of the Foundation remained icy-coldly confident. Their spokesperson declared that you just have a few hours left before the automatic protocols complete their task. Prior to the system's total collapse. From their command center, David Walker coordinated with global cyber response teams. It's not simply infrastructure that the failsafe targets. Only specific information is being released. Carefully selected secrets intended to cause the most discord. Logan knew that they were no longer trying to hide. They are attempting to establish their argument. Prove that revealing the truth hurts people more than their lies do. In Whispering Pines, Linda Cooper handled the urgent crisis. The village was now the epicenter of a global emergency. Command posts were set up by federal agencies. Units of the military guarded perimeters. Hourly intelligence officials arrived. According to Maria Santos, they are all pursuing the same goal. Access to the main data centers of the Foundation. Authority over their fail-safe procedures. The last trap set by the Foundation, however, was more subtly concealed than anyone anticipated. Infrastructure was not the only target of the automated systems attacks. They were divulging secrets in a methodically organized order. Every revelation is intended to elicit the greatest possible response. Logan St. Bootied the statistics and said, "Look at the pattern. They are not merely disseminating data. They are planning anarchy." Giving the impression that the illness is worse than the remedy. Kane saw the escalating catastrophe with a sense of fulfillment. Now you see. Freedom is not the truth. Ammunition is what it is. We didn't use force alone to keep things under control. We achieved this by comprehending how reality is shaped by information. The Foundation's failsafe procedures persisted in their methodical assault on international stability. Waves of coordinated stock market crashes occurred. Manufactured provocations prompted military action. Decades of secrets were revealed to governments. Eleanor noted that they are attempting to force everyone to make a decision. Between lies and stability, or between truth and chaos. However, the Foundation had made a critical error in judgment. The world had evolved, and their automated systems, which were created decades ago, had not taken that into consideration. The way information now flowed was different. How individuals could coordinate and interact in ways that their previous procedures could not have predicted. The counter-reaction was spearheaded by Maria Santos, who coordinated with reporters from all around the world. They believed that a controlled disclosure of secrets would induce fear. Rather, it's revealing their deceit. Demonstrating how they fabricated disputes to get control. The board members of the Foundation saw their last move backfire. Every disclosure of their practices that was meant to show how important it was to get them under control instead showed how deeply corrupted they were. Working with multinational teams to thwart the automated attacks, Logan and David concentrated on the technical battle. According to David, they designed their systems to be untraceable. However, all systems have flaws, particularly those that were created decades ago. Control of the Foundation's data cores became increasingly contested. Final efforts were made by elite teams to get to important servers. Lethal protocols were activated by automated defenses. However, the joint efforts of multinational cyber teams, local defenders, and federal officers made steady progress. The ground fight was organized by Linda Cooper. They are attempting to go to sub-level 3. Something that seemed to frighten even the board members. Kane's own files revealed the truth. The ultimate fail-safe for the Foundation involved more than just crashing computers or leaking secrets. It was about setting off battles they had meticulously planned for decades. They have only used deception and blackmail to stop wars. Now you see the true option. Eleanor was questioned by Cain. Between honest war and controlled peace. Between cozy falsehoods and damaging reality. No, Eleanor said. The true decision is between bravery and fear. Either we stand together and confront the truth, or we allow people like you to manipulate us with lies. The automated systems of the Foundation achieved their last stage. The most deadly secrets are ready to be revealed. Important systems are targeted for failure. The decades meticulously preserved equilibrium was ready to collapse. However, an unforeseen event occurred. The discoveries did not cause fear in the populace. Communities did not fall into anarchy. Rather, the revelation of deception led to unparalleled collaboration. As Logan watched multinational teams collaborate to thwart the Foundation's attacks, he noted that they never realized their true vulnerability. They believed that people could be controlled and predicted. They never discovered that people are capable of overcoming their worries. Maria Santos worked with officials and journalists throughout the world to arrange the information flow. Each secret they divulge reveals more about their strategies. People are becoming more adept at spotting trickery and fending off fake terror. The struggle for the data cores came to a head. The untouchable Foundation systems were under coordinated attack from several angles. Firewalls were compromised by technical teams. Physical access was secured by tactical units. Control that had been meticulously maintained for decades started to fall apart. As Cain's systems failed, he cautioned, "You don't know what you're unleashing." The impending anarchy. No, Eleanor clarified. You never realized the true nature of your struggle. Not anarchy. Human nature. The uncontrollable, unpredictable, and manipulable item. Board members of the Foundation saw their last weapon fail. Instead, their automated methods, which were intended to demonstrate the need for their management, exposed its fundamental flaw. Real people who choose courage over fear and honesty over comfort. However, a new threat surfaced as the current crisis reached its zenith. The last sequence started with the Foundation's most secretive procedures, which were even kept from their own leaders. Something began to count down from somewhere deep within their bunker system. It was not the end of the battle for Whispering Pines. The true danger was only getting started. And in a world where lies are meticulously cultivated, the course of the next few hours would not only decide the fate of a town or an organization, but also the fate of truth itself. Countdown clock swung approaching zero in the lowest level of the Foundation's bunker system, deep under Whispering Pines. On long dormant control panels, warning lights flared. The automatic activation of emergency measures predated the majority of the Foundation's leaders. According to David Walker, who was looking at decrypted blueprints, it's not just another failsafe. This was the foundation of the entire network of bunkers. The rest was merely disguise. Logan saw the ramifications at once. They weren't merely trying to hide from the public. They had something to conceal from themselves. At last, Alexander Cain's composed exterior broke. You're not understanding. It was never meant to turn on. Simply be there as a last assurance. The final danger to keep things under control. Eleanor handled Cain's admission at the Harper farm with her usual composure. Mr. Cain, what's buried beneath my land? Insurement, Cain muttered. Evidence why control is needed in the globe. The Foundation is required. Even if we need to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. With sensors detecting increasing instability beneath the town, Linda Cooper organized emergency response teams. Radar that penetrates the ground reveals movement in the deep structures. Down there, something's shifting. Parts of the truth were uncovered by Maria Santos' investigation. Before the Foundation took over, the original military objective wasn't about contingency or survival. Leverage was the issue. About maintaining authority by posing the greatest threat. For the first time, the board members of the foundation displayed genuine anxiety as they watched their institution fall apart. "You must restore our authority," they demanded. "There is no other option to stop the failsafe." Teams were taken by Logan and David to the lowest level of the facility. This place had different security methods. Deadlier, but older and less developed. Created to safeguard something much more deadly than information or concealment. David mentioned Cold War procedures. Avoiding outdated electronic locks. This institution was the first of its kind. The foundation just centered their network on it. Level upon level, the truth came to light. The threat had not originated with the foundation. They had found it. Discovered a weapon so awful that control was assured by its very existence. Utilizing its threat to hold on to power, they centered their entire organization on suppressing it. Kane claimed that we avoided worse disasters. Managed terror to keep the peace. However, the confinement procedures are now not working. The failsafe will demonstrate our need. Eleanor had a steely voice. By threatening everything to demonstrate our need for your defense. Control is not that. Terrorism is that. Desperate measures were taken to stop the failsafe. Every attempt at intervention was met with resistance from Foundation mechanisms, which were built to be unstoppable. Anybody approaching important controls was the target of automated defenses. Countdown clocks kept moving forward unabated. Preparations for the evacuation were overseen by Linda Cooper. The entire town cannot be moved in time. We must put an end to whatever is under there. International agencies were managed by Maria Santos. Similar facilities have been found elsewhere. The Foundation's entire network was designed to keep these outdated weapons under check. Exploited the threat to keep power around the world. Loyalists of the Foundation took their last stand to defend the most profound regulations. They no longer fought for dominance, but rather because they genuinely felt that control was required. That the ultimate truth has to be shielded from humanity. Kane cautioned, "You believe you are choosing freedom. You've decided to go extinct. Some realities are too risky to confront." "No," said Eleanor. "The only reality that is too risky to confront is that we have allowed individuals such as yourselves to manipulate us by instilling fear. Today is the last day of that." With only a few minutes left, Logan and David arrived in the central control room. The original military installation demonstrated its actual function. Proof of weapons, not a weapon in and of itself. The Foundation has utilized evidence of conflicts and threats to support their authority. Logan understood they didn't construct this. They located it. Utilized it. They based their entire control system on controlling their dread of what it stood for. Critical phases of the countdown were achieved. Automated systems were ready to expose evidence of threats that the Foundation had kept hidden for many years. Evidence that they thought would destabilize the world and demonstrate the need for their domination. Kane, however, had made a mistake. The universe on which he had based his ideas was no more. When confronted with horrible realities, people did not give up in fear. Together, they stood. Opted for bravery over fear. Eleanor informed him, "You built everything on the assumption that humans need to be controlled. I never realized that true power comes from defending one another against dangers rather than running away from them." The Foundation's last attempt failed due to human decision-making rather than technological involvement. When their own operators realized what they were really threatening, they decided to back off. Their automated systems, which were intended to highlight the need for control, instead exposed its fundamental flaws. With seconds left, Logan and David locked down the failsafe controls. Not because of better technology or strategic advantage, but because individuals in the Foundation's leadership opted for courage over fear and truth over comfort. Maria noted that they believed they were shielding humanity from itself, recording the reality. They didn't realize they were keeping us from becoming stronger and learning to confront our concerns as a team. Board members of the Foundation saw their careers come to an end. The mechanism they had established to keep things under control by using fear fell apart due to internal decision-making rather than an outside onslaught. Truth is preferred above cozy lies by people of all levels. The final securing of Foundation premises was organized by Linda Cooper. For years to come, we will be uncovering their secrets and underground bunkers. But they have lost their potency. Their fear-based domination is over. Cain finally came to terms with his failure. We believed we were required. Believed that for mankind to survive, we had to be in charge. We never realized that we were impeding the same power that we professed to defend. Eleanor witnessed government teams start to dismantle the deepest facility owned by the Foundation. Quietly, she said, "There are some things that are more dangerous than truth, living in terror. Allowing threats to be used to dominate us. Comfort over bravery." The conflict over Whispering Pines had grown more extensive. It was a fight not only against the power of one group but also against the notion that terror was the only effective way to control people. However, additional questions surfaced as federal authorities took control of the remaining Foundation facilities. The network they had established. The secrets they had kept. The disputes they had handled. No one could entirely predict the changes that would occur as decades of control were dismantled. The present conflict was coming to a close. However, the true difficulty was only getting started. Because it would be more difficult to create a world based on courage and truth than to keep one based on control and fear. The following stage would put humanity as a whole, not simply Whispering Pines, to the test. And whether or not individuals might learn to live with the truth instead of hiding behind cozy lies would depend on the decisions made in the days ahead. Whispering Pines had changed into something unexpected a year after the Foundation's demise. An example for towns around the world dealing with comparable issues. After decades of controlled terror, the town now showed how to replace it with something better. In the Montana spring, Eleanor Harper's farm was thriving. Under clear sky, wheat fields turned golden. The subterranean facilities that had once held the Foundation's secrets were now used for something else. Future generations are being taught by educational institutions the perils of embracing power through fear. During Logan's routine visit home, Eleanor informed him that they come from all over. People who are curious about how we achieved it. How we united in the face of manipulation. The town itself had changed yet remained fundamentally the same. Despite being a community center, Bill Anderson's cafe now welcomed foreign guests who were learning how local cooperation had triumphed over global dominance. As Jenny Thompson's store grew, it turned into a hub for neighborhood associations. The Foundation never understood that, Bill noted as he served coffee to another group of officials involved in the project. They never understood that we are stronger without their control, and they believed that people required it. Maria Santos had gained international acclaim for her thorough exposé of the Foundation's activities. Her account of decades of manipulation was made mandatory reading in government academies and journalism schools. During a talk at a university, she clarified that the story was about more than just exposing wrongdoing. It was meant to demonstrate that there is always a choice between uniting against actual threats or embracing control out of fear. New benchmarks for law enforcement were established by Linda Cooper's reformed police force. Her recovery from Foundation corruption was examined by agencies all over the world, which developed a model centered on community trust as opposed to authoritarian control. She suggested that visiting officials begin with the truth. Increase trust by being open and honest. Keep in mind who and why we are truly safeguarding them. Both David's and Logan's military careers changed course. They became experts at identifying and stopping such control systems as a result of their experience taking down the Foundation's infrastructure. They used fabricated fear to teach others to spot and avoid manipulation. At the briefing, David clarified that the Foundation was not unique. The biggest illustration of how cultures are impacted by fear-based control. Knowing why they failed makes it less likely to happen again. The last mysteries of the subsurface facilities were revealed. Every bunker that was made public offered fresh proof of the Foundation's profound impact on global affairs. More significantly, though, each discovery contributed to the global dismantling of comparable control systems. Logan pointed out, going over training materials, they built everything on one false assumption. That terror must be used to control people. Every time they are exposed, that presumption is shown to be incorrect. While incarcerated for life, Alexander Kane observed stories of progress with increasing comprehension. His life's labor of fear-based control had resulted in just what he said he was trying to avoid: vulnerability, weakness, and reliance on outside authority. On her last visit, he informed Eleanor, "I thought we were needed. Believed that mankind required our defense. I never realized that we were keeping people from becoming truly strong." After their trials revealed decades of deception, the Foundation's board members were subject to international justice. Their greatest punishment, however, was witnessing communities all around the world choose truth over cozy lies, cooperation over control, and unity over fear. Maria said, recording the changes, "They're still waiting for chaos, cannot comprehend that a group of people confronting the truth together is more powerful than any amount of fear-based control." Others were motivated by the town's example. People all throughout the world researched how Whispering Pines had remained united in the face of manipulation. How they had opted for solidarity over obedience, truth over control, and bravery over comfort. A documentary crew was assured by Eleanor that this is the true legacy. Demonstrating that there is a better way, in addition to exposing their lies. Because when people work together to overcome obstacles, they are more powerful than any control mechanism. Regular community gatherings were held at Bill Anderson's diner, where locals told guests about their experiences. The tale of defiance against the Foundation evolved into a tale of decision-making. They believed that we would become vulnerable if we were isolated, Bill told another study group. Rather, it taught us the value of true community. How our unity makes us more powerful than any outside force. The agency led by Linda Cooper displayed innovative methods for upholding law and order. Through open communication and community trust, not by coercion or terror. Her officers became models of non-threatening protection. She told police academy grads that the Foundation was in control because they were afraid of what would happen if they weren't there. By assisting communities in uniting against actual threats, we provide protection. The subterranean facilities were given new uses. Research institutes looked for ways to stop control systems. Programs for education trained students to recognize manipulation using fear. The triumph of truth over concealed lies was evident in each converted bunker. During an inspection, David pointed out that the infrastructure they constructed to keep control now aids in preventing it. An excellent illustration of how to allocate resources more effectively. Throughout his military career, Logan's emphasis shifted to prevention. Teaching others to spot and avoid fear-based manipulation. Assisting communities in remaining strong by remaining united instead of submitting to authority. During training, he highlighted that the Foundation's greatest weapon was neither their secrets or their technology. It was persuading individuals that in order to be safe, they required outside supervision. Our primary goal is to dispel that misconception. Similar systems around the world were discovered by Maria Santos's ongoing research. However, communities began to choose resistance over acquiescence as a result of each exposure. The Foundation's demise served as a template for destroying fear-based rule. In her most recent piece, she stated that their worst dread is becoming a reality. People are learning to resist influence by banding together. Putting the truth ahead of comfort. Bravery over restraint. Eleanor's farm came to represent opposition to control based on fear. In addition to learning about what had transpired, visitors also learned how common people who chose bravery above comfort were able to overthrow powerful manipulative systems. During their usual nighttime conversations, she informed Logan that the land endures. However, individuals are what really count. How they decide to live. What people decide to think. Whether they unite or fearfully yield to authority. The fall of the Foundation brought about enlightenment rather than chaos. Fear-based manipulation was acknowledged and rejected by communities all across the world. Opted for unity rather than seclusion. Bravery over ease. Control over truth. As she watched another sunset over her fields, Eleanor noted that that was the true triumph. Demonstrating that there is a better path forward in addition to exposing their lies. That when people band together, they can overcome any obstacle without allowing fear to rule them. Although the battle for Whispering Pines was over, its example persisted in motivating others. Demonstrating how common people may overthrow any control system by using terror to choose bravery over comfort, solidarity over isolation, and truth over falsehoods. For certain things are more powerful than fear. There are some truths that are stronger than lies. Some victories come from making better decisions about how to handle life's actual obstacles rather than from overcoming adversaries. Together. Actually. Fearlessly. 2 more amazing tales await you directly on your screen in the next section. You won't want to miss these if you like this one. Simply click to view, and remember to subscribe. A lot would be at stake.
Disclaimer. This channel stands against all forms of intolerance, discrimination, racism, and violations of human rights. The stories shared here are original creations, developed to encourage reflection, understanding, and constructive dialogue. All content is produced with a commitment to respecting diversity and honoring human dignity.